Ladies and gentlemen, let's go. Let's go. We ain't got no time to waste. Let's go. You are now listening to Jason Anderson, and you are in the zone.
You're in the zone with Jason Anderson on Sports Radio 810 WHB.
Lillard trying to get open, does. A three in his sights. Got it. Damian Lillard can shoot, knocked it down. Shooting from a phone booth, doesn't matter. 13 threes, one shy of tying Klay Thompson's all-time record. Back to Grant. Dame will spread out on the sideline to get the rock. High dribble, into the lane, running right-hander, up and in. Damian Lillard with that runner. 71 points, a career high.
You're in the zone on Sports Radio 810 WHB.
I read a Monday edition of The Zone right here on Sports Radio 810 WHB. Jason Anderson with you, Josh Brisco and Beards. Heading up until 2 o'clock. We've got you for the next 4 hours. We'll talk some college basketball today, some Major League Baseball, some NFL football. We'll get into all of that. 913-912-4810 is the text line to be a part of the show, part of the conversation. 913-912-4810 to join us and to weigh in on the different things we will be talking about and weighing in on as well. We'll talk with Matt Tait coming up at 11 o'clock. KUSports.com, Lower Journal World. We'll discuss the KU win over the weekend over West Virginia and moving forward with this team presented by 23rd Street Breweries. When we have Matt Tait on, we will certainly talk about K-State and Mizzou. We're actually going to start the show here in the first segment, talk some college basketball with those. And then Mick Shaffer in the 1 o'clock hour, KSHB 41 sports director. Get some Learn, Funniest Best coming up as well. So 913-912-4810. How was the weekend? Josh, good?
Spectacular.
Good.
Do you know what happened this weekend?
Well, I mean, that's kind of an open-ended question, so there's a lot of answers to that. But
very few live sporting events taking place in Kansas City. I had 48 hours. You know what I did on Saturday morning?
Nothing.
Started redecorating half of our living room.
Okay, there you go.
Renee was gone. I was home by myself. I thought, you know what I haven't done since football, since training camp? Redecorated.
Are you the one that decorates the living room, or was she happy about when she got home and saw the couch and everything moved? And
yeah, so I would say that I occasionally have maybe once, maybe twice a year or so, the interior design bug bites me a little bit. I don't have a lot of steam for it, we're talking about an hour or two. I built a shelf, then I started reorganizing some things. But Renee is the decorator for parties and holidays and all of that.
Yeah.
That's not really my speed. But I decided I was going to give us a plant table, and gosh darn it, we have a plant table now. You can grade my work live on air if you'd like. I have a picture of the. I already showed Beard's little DIY I did to display record, like an old school record album, whatever one's on the turntable. Now you can just slide it into this little holder I made up here. It's like a little now playing. There you go.
Good. Yeah, no, I am not the person that redecorates or anything. I'm just simply the one that will give opinions on, well, what do you think about this? What do you think?
That's what the dog does. Yeah. Scout is the really judgmental one in our house.
What do you think, honey? And then she'll direct. Can you move that over here? Okay, let me slide this over that. What do you think about that? I don't know. What do you think about it? What do you think? Get your opinion first, and then I'll weigh in. You know what? I totally agree with that. Should we try? Okay, yeah, let's try another. No, let's move this over there. Okay, great. Yeah, that's typically what. So I'm not going to be the one that'll judge. I will be the one that you tell me what you think about it, and I'll say, you know what? I agree. I see all the points that you're bringing up there. So I would probably go with that. Nah, I don't really like it. You know what? I agree. I'm not a big fan of it either. I just didn't want to say anything and hurt your feelings. So we'll just adjust and figure it out from there.
I'm a big move something, stand back, hands on hips, look at it, shake my head, walk back, move it 6 inches, walk back, repeat, move it back 3 inches, and then go, close enough. And then that's generally my cycle.
Oh, I am when we get the things in place that she would like to have them, I am the person then that will make sure that everything is going to be aligned.
Okay, so you're the right angle guy.
Yes, there will be specific spots where this will go. Is that lined up with this particular picture? Is it in completely the middle of the mantle there? Is there enough space over with this chair on that spot? We got an idea of where it's going to go. Now I'll take over. Now I got it here.
I like those command strips, even though really I think they're kind of they came onto the scene because they were good for dorm decorating or whatever.
BS. Command strip for a week. After that, it's going to take the paint off the wall.
It's going to bring the wall down with it if you do it wrong. I understand. But man, I am a big I need to buy twice as many command strips as I actually intend to use because if it's not quite right, I'm just going to pull it off. I'm just going to do it again.
That's exactly right.
No big deal. I'm not putting any holes in the walls until eventually the picture frame brings down a whole chunk of drywall with it, and then we can cross that bridge when we get there.
That's right. I always say, measure once, cut twice.
That is really kind of how I do it.
Every contractor, builder, carpenter has always said, measure once, cut twice. See what happens. Just give it the old college try. You know what? It's going to work out. It'll be fine.
Try it enough. It'll eventually be fine.
It'll be fine. I went to the 101 Awards on Saturday. And
saw that.
That was a lot of fun. It was cool to be there. And Patrick Mahomes had a prior engagement. He is a groomsman in a wedding. So apparently that was scheduled before the 101 Awards.
Before he knew he was going to be MVP.
Hey, did you not think you would be? How about that? How about his...
Not a very good friend.
His friend that's getting married did not think Mahomes would be the Offensive Player of the Year in the AFC at the 101 Awards, nor did he think he would be the Chiefs' team MVP, the Derek Thomas Award winner.
Yeah, no, that's a bad friend. Do we know who this is? This a high school friend, a college friend? Did Travis Kelce elope?
I didn't... I don't know. He hasn't hosted Saturday Night Live with Kelsey Ballerini yet.
Oh, yeah, that's true. That's true. Bad timing.
He hasn't eloped. They haven't started dating yet. Still my prediction. This weekend, right? This weekend is when he hosts Saturday Night Live.
Oh, that's
coming
right.
up on Saturday night with Kelsey Ballerini being the musical performance.
For the pun name game, if nothing else, guys, give it a shot.
Yeah, that's easy. Travis Kelsey Ballerini. Oh, nailed it. So my prediction is within the week after, or a couple of weeks after that, then we'll hear about Kelsey maybe being an item.
I think that
unless he's already dating somebody behind the scenes that we don't know about. So then I apologize to said significant other.
The only person at this point who wouldn't surprise me is Pete Davidson. I know that would be a big change in branding.
Dating Kelsey?
Anyone.
Travis?
Dating anyone ever.
Okay.
Travis, the other Kelsey.
Any Kelsey.
Jason Kelsey. You. If I found out that Pete Davidson was dating anyone anywhere ever, I'd be like, yeah, all right, fine. I guess we've all accepted that's part of it. I think the Kelsey power couple, though, I'm very willing to root for that. Those split jerseys, Mrs. Kelsey's gonna have to get a 33-33-33 split jersey. What is she, Troy Aikman?
Not sure. 2/3. So we were there on Saturday late afternoon. Stephen St. John and I were there hanging out and checking out the press conferences and everything. And so Patrick Mahomes wasn't able to make it, but I thought it was pretty cool that Jalen Hurts did make it. You know how easy it would have been for Jalen Hurts to go, I had prior engagement. Sorry. Yeah. I mean, it's is it the NFL awards the Thursday before the Super Bowl? The 101 awards are we believe, pretty prestigious. Mm-hmm. And I think the NFL does as well. James Palmer and Laura Rutledge hosted the event on Saturday. And Jalen Hurts, when he was giving his acceptance at the press conference of being named the NFC Offensive Player of the Year, had said, it's difficult to be named these award winners, right? It's not easy to be put in that position and to appreciate the fact that he was given the award and to not take that lightly, to then show up with his family, with his, quarterbacks coach who introduced him as the NFC Offensive Player of the Year. And I thought that was pretty cool that he didn't have to come to Kansas City a couple of weeks after losing to the Chiefs and see Super Bowl champions posted everywhere. And it being an award that is kind of a Chiefs event.
Yeah.
Because Clark Hunt is there. The award winners, Doug Peterson and Brian Dable and Mike Madden, who was John Madden's son, who John Madden received the Lifetime Achievement Award in his role in football overall. The Lamar Hunt Award, I should say, is what that is. And Doug Peterson, Brian Dable, and Mike Madden. First of all, congratulations to the Kansas City Chiefs in winning Super Bowl 57. If the Chiefs hadn't won it, if the Chiefs and Eagles or whatever hadn't played in it, I don't think they would start off with a congratulations to the Seattle Seahawks in winning.
Yeah, I think you're right.
But because it is kind of a Chiefs event.
It's certainly a Kansas City event. It's a Hunt family event.
That's right. And so they start off by saying congratulations, and Jalen Hurts sitting right there. Yeah. And there's a picture that Stephen St. John put out that has gotten a lot of play with Philly fans and Eagles fans in Philly and New York Giants fans, where Brian Dable is starting off and saying, congratulations to the Kansas City Chiefs in winning the Super Bowl. And then he puts his arm around Jalen Hurts and was like, sorry, and kind of smiling. And Stephen St. John got a picture right as that was happening and then put out like the caption of Dable congratulating the Chiefs while also saying, yep, sorry about that, Jalen Hurts. And Eagles fans and Giants fans are just going back and forth on Stephen St. John's timeline about Brian Dable, the New York Giants coach, going, ooh, sorry about that, Jalen. Ooh, tough one. I just couldn't get it done there, Jalen. But congratulations on your individual award. No ring for you, but congratulations. So that's fun in happening. But again,
it didn't seem hostile in person, right?
It was not.
The smile on Jalen Hurts' face in the photo from Steven, I saw that and I went, that seems like Brian Dable going a little razzia.
Mm-hmm.
Also, Brian Dable's team, where did they end their season exactly in their NFC playoff run?
Not in Phoenix.
Not in Phoenix. So I think
they did not do that.
That seemed in good spirits to me.
I always thought it was also thought it was
not that Eagles fans would ever assume that anything was done in a good playful spirit, but I digress.
Do you notice the pictures that were out of those players that were accepting the awards? Jalen Hurts, Chris Jones, Doug Peterson, all standing at the podium talking, except for the picture with Brian Dable sitting next to Jalen Hurts talking. Brian Dable was the first award winner. And it was like, Brian Dable, NFC Coach of the Year, gave an applause. And everybody had a microphone in front of him. So Brian Dable just said, well, I really appreciate that, and starts talking. And then the next, Laura Rutledge introduces the next award winner, and that is, Jalen Hurts. And he scoots his chair out and starts standing up. And all I did was look at Brian Dable. And Brian Dable looked at Jalen Hurts and then looked around the room like, oh, crap, we were supposed to stand up and go over to the podium here. He was the first one. He didn't know. Like, everybody's got a microphone right in front of them. Why would everybody have a microphone right in front of them if then you were expected to walk up to the podium to talk?
Great pocket awareness by Jalen Hurts,
That's right.
and unfortunate game mismanagement there by Brian Dable. I don't blame him, though. That's a tough signal to catch.
So then after that, everybody walked up to the podium and talked, even though there was a microphone right in front of them. I wondered if the plan was for Laura Rutledge and James Palmer to stay at the podium in the press conference and just say, Brian Dable, he talks. Doug Peterson, he talks.
Yeah.
They introduce the next one instead of the
I think
presenter.
they've all been at the podium in years past. I think
they have.
Right? Okay.
They have, but I don't remember them being microphones in front of everybody sitting at the...
I don't either.
So I thought that was kind of funny, and Jalen Hurts, started. But I thought it was pretty cool that he showed up and went through the whole pomp and circumstance and all of that stuff and was appreciative of being named the award winner. That it was like, why would there be questions about me not being here?
Yeah,
of course I'm going to be here for this award. Are you kidding me? I'm NFC Offensive Player of the Year. Like, you understand how hard it is to get something like that? Because a year ago at this time, the Eagles were wondering if they were going to trade for a quarterback.
That's right.
They were going to bring in Aaron Rodgers or Russell Wilson or whoever else it might have been that they were going to be looking at. It was going to be
one more year of Jalen Hurts, and then, hey, you know what? We have a lot of draft picks if this doesn't work out.
Yep, so we're going to trade for a quarterback, or we're going to maybe trade up for a quarterback, but Hurts is not really the guy. He's a placeholder. And now he's the guy.
You haven't explicitly teased it yet, and so I've been thinking maybe we do this at noon, but whatever your vision is here. You have like 5 great minutes with Jalen Hurts. The
5 minutes,
the small spoiler that I'm giving is that, as what you've just laid out here, I know is reflected in your conversation where, man, like, make yourself try to hate Jalen Hurts just to see if you can, just to really test out your hater muscles and make sure you're in proper hater form, because it seems impossible. He just seems like an outrageously good dude who also is appreciative of both opportunities like this and also why he is so intentional with the places he shows up and the types of things that he says. I won't spoil the literal final words of your guys' conversation, but it's really good stuff when we bring that to you today.
It was fun. So we'll hear from Jalen Hurts. Chris Jones and Stephen St. John talked. Isaiah Pacheco and Stephen St. John talked. Doug Peterson and Stephen St. John talked. I talked to Jalen Hurts. There's a reason for the 1 versus the 3.
Yours is 5 minutes too.
Well, and Jalen Hurts was on one side of the podium, and those 3 guys were right next to each other on the other side of the room. And my job was to get Jalen Hurts. St. John's job was to get Chris Jones, and then after that, we'll see what happens. And there were about 10 people in front of me talking to Jalen Hurts. So I'm like, you know what? I'm going to wait.
Here we go.
I see over there St. John's talking to Jones.
Steven's
waiting
cooking.
for Hurts. I see over there St. John's talking to Pacheco. Okay, got that done. Waiting for Hurts. See over there St. John's talking to Peterson.
Sweet.
Boom, got that done.
Great.
So we got the Pacheco dancing. We got the Jones contract. We got Doug Peterson and the Eric Bieniemy conversation. I'll just wait for Jalen Hurts here. So we'll hear from them.
Worth the wait, I think. Worth the wait.
Hopefully, we'll see.
I don't know how Steven felt about it. I didn't ask him.
He felt like it was a good time. I was hoping to also get to interview some of the presenters, because Brian Johnson's the quarterback coach for the Eagles and expected to be the OC. But the connections that he has are unbelievable. He was the backup quarterback to Alex Smith at Utah. He was at Mississippi State when Chris Jones was there, and also Dak Prescott. Now I'm forgetting like 3 of the other connections that I found with Brian Johnson. I was just looking at him. I'm like, wow, he's there. He did this. He did that over there. Well, this is really interesting. But it would have been a fun conversation to have with him, just about all the different things that were connected to Kansas City in some way, shape, or form. But did not get that chance.
You said presenter, and I think Beards was hoping that you would have had a chance to talk to James Palmer.
I did talk to him.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I went up and introduced myself.
Were you giving Beards his phone number?
I went up and introduced myself, and he was like, "Oh yeah, the voice. I hear the voice now. I hear the voice now. Absolutely. Yeah, nice to finally meet you." And he's like, "Are you going to be at the dinner and the the event tonight. I'm like, nah, I'm heading home. He goes, oh, I see how it is for you guys. You just show up and do this and then head home. I'm like, well, they're not putting me up in a hotel, James. He goes, touche. So I ain't staying at the Westin Crown Center tonight like you are, buddy.
I just wish the NFL Network had it in the budget to get him a phone that has cell service that specifically connects to Beards' phone number.
It's odd that it's just Beards' phone number that it does not connect to. It's weird. It's blocked. Were you calling him at like 5:45?
Yeah.
Because he looked down and it said, "Do not answer."
Yeah, Beards. Why are you when you try to get hold of James Palmer? Why is it always *69 and then his phone number? What are you trying to hide? I guess it's just who it is.
Absolutely nothing.
There you go. 913-912-4810 is the text line. All three local schools in college basketball winning over the weekend, and they're all over 20 wins. And Missouri is 1 win away, playing the two of the final 2 games are against a couple of the worst teams in the SEC. Missouri, 1 more win. All 3 teams would have double-digit conference wins this year.
Crazy.
From a year ago,
Unfathomable.
or even the year before that, or the year before that, or the year before that. We talked last night on Sunday Sound Off. One of the questions was, when was the last time you were this excited or optimistic about local college basketball? And the stretch from 2008 to 2012 was the last time that it sort of had this feeling, and especially with the 2012 first round kind of ended all that feeling for me too, but whatever. Apparently the rest of the tournament took place, and there was a national championship game with one of the local schools that played in it. Was it K-State? I'm not sure. I stopped watching.
I think it was K-State.
I stopped watching the tournament after the first round, after Friday. Once Cornell beat Duke, I stopped watching the tournament.
Yeah, right.
It
At
was
that
over
point,
for me.
The magic was gone.
What's the point? What's the point of even watching if Coach K can't be walking around the court, sidelines and judging opposing players and
just judging
and things like that? So, but I went back and looked because I remember it being a successful run and just having fun around the area in that time. But I had to go back and look and see just the difference of that run versus what has happened since then. And with 2008 to 2012, so 2008, the tournament happened and there was a local team that won the championship. I think that might have been K-State as well. Was it Beards? It was a team from was it Wichita State?
One of the Kansas teams definitely won that year.
It was down in San Antonio, but
yeah, I don't know. I think it was either blue and red or the combination of blue and red being purple.
Was it Washburn? Might have been Washburn.
Could have been Washburn.
Yeah.
Look, MNU was good that year. I don't know.
It wasn't Mizzou?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure.
In 2008, no, it was not Mizzou. No.
Sure
It was. I'm positive it was a team from Kansas. I'm not sure, but no. 2008, KU wins the NCAA tournament. And then 2000.
Oh, that's who it was.
And then 2008, Memphis loses the championship game.
Right. Yeah.
Which was real. Let's be honest.
That's
I mean,
really
hit a freaking free throw, Memphis.
Did Kansas win or did Memphis lose? Next on First Take in 2023. What?
Death, taxes, John Calipari's team missing free throws in the tournament. Cal panicking at the end of games and strategy. Death, taxes, and those things. So that 2008 to 2012 run bookended by KU winning a national title, playing in the national championship game. In that stretch, all 3 local schools at least played in an Elite Eight. Kansas State had 5 tournament wins in that 5-year stretch. Missouri had 4 tournament wins in that stretch. They don't have one since. All 3 local schools had a C as high as 2. All 3 local schools combined to miss a total of 2 tournaments. KU didn't miss a tournament. Missouri missed 1. K-State missed 1. 4 out of 5 for both those schools. 5 out of 5 for KU. Since then, K-State, while going to an Elite Eight and has won a Big 12, they've made 5 out of the possible 10 tournaments. Mizzou has made 3 out of a possible 10 tournaments and 0 wins for Mizzou. So that run of 2008 to 2012, every year you expected the teams to be in the tournament.
Yep.
If you're a 2 seed, you had a dynamite regular season. All teams went to at least an Elite Eight. We know Missouri didn't go past that because, they only have 8 Final Fours in their career. At least in my mind, they do. But that was a fun run. And I don't know what this year's going to bring. I don't know if Missouri is going to make it to the second weekend or not, or lose in the first round. Missouri's a team that the way they defend, and if they're not hitting shots, can be a 6-11 upset or a 7-10, which isn't really that much of an upset, but depending on where they get. If they win these final 2 games and they're sitting at 22-8 or 23-8 and then 11-7 heading into the SEC tournament, And if they win against, let's say, if they win out and Tennessee and Auburn both lose one game the rest of the way, they're the 4 seed. They would be playing essentially Tennessee on Friday in the quarterfinals of the SEC tournament. And if they win that game, they could be a 6 seed. They could be a 5 seed, which would be scary because that has 5-12 written all over it.
Mm-hmm. Weirdly, that is scarier than a 6-11.
Yeah, weird, I know, odd. But yes, they're a team that if they're not hitting shots the way they defend is not going to be good for them. But with the way they hit shots, if you get into an arena where they really are, knocking down some shots and everybody's hot, they can be in the second weekend. K-State, can be in the second weekend because they've got 2 stud players, 3 really. You got 3 pros, a couple of guys that are definitely going to be in the NBA. You can be in the second weekend. Kansas can certainly be in Houston. I don't know what this year is going to be, but I think we're at the beginning of what could be a fun 4 or 5-year run like we had in that 5-year run from 2008 to 2012 when it was all 3 of the local schools, and they were all in the Big 12 as well. So that changes things.
Yeah, but so there are 2 things about this that jump out to me as being little differences, but that make all the comparisons all the more relevant, is this is without question, and it aligned with your range. I don't know if it was because of this or if this is just a side effect, but this is by far the most interesting and the most intertwined these 3 teams have felt since Mizzou left for the SEC.
Yeah.
I'm not some Big 12 grudge holder or whatever, but just whenever you leave the conference and you're going trying to build your own thing over there that's so football driven, Mizzou basketball is the easiest thing to forget about in terms of the 3 big local schools with the top 2 sports, right? It is easier to forget about Mizzou basketball than it is even in the worst stages of Kansas football because football is football, right? And Mizzou basketball just became kind of the afterthought of those 6 more often than not. So it's partially that Mizzou feels just as relevant right now, or at least as relevant as they've been since they left the Big 12. And also, there is a little bit of a little kind of 2 Davids and a Goliath energy of K-State and Mizzou are both actively putting down the foundation of a new look program where they've been successful immediately. That is a fun, rejuvenating energy to have an up-and-coming program, and we've got 2 of them here. Meanwhile, Kansas is still Kansas. That is a really excellent dynamic to me for keeping all 3 of these programs really interesting, both individually and in relation to each other. Certainly, like you said, since the 2011, 12, 13, I don't remember.
2008 to 2012.
The 2012
that 5-year run.
Cutoff line there.
Yeah, 2012 cutoff line.
Going into that year's tournament, right?
You can even say 2013, but it kind of
the 2012
Mizzou fell off quickly.
Tournament year. We've talked about this on I think Friday also. I'm gonna get our basketball year terminology figured out.
I only use basketball the year of the tournament.
I think that makes sense. I think that makes sense. I'm getting that rewiring for you.
Yep. 2008 is the 2008 season. KU won the title. 2012 season is KU winning or going and playing in the title, and the tournament not continuing after Friday.
Exactly.
Of the opening round.
But this is absolutely the most juice that it's had since 2012, and it's not even close.
Yeah. And it was K-State in 11, right? K-State in 11 that went to the Elite 8 and ended up losing to Butler. And I still contend that if it hadn't been for the 3 overtime game against Xavier in the Sweet 16, and if that Xavier K-State game was in the round of 32, but the fact that game was played on a Thursday or Friday, I can't remember which one it was, but you play that game at night, and then you return 2 days later, you get 1 off day, and you play against Butler. That's a really good, solid team. Had some NBA players on it, oddly enough. And I don't know that they had enough. And I still contend that if KU or K-State wins that game in regulation, that they're in the Final Four that year. And you can make a case that they might be playing UConn in the championship game if they just replace Butler with K-State, because that was a damn fine K-State team. But that's the fickleness of the NCAA tournament, that Jordan Crawford can't stop hitting crazy shots, and so it takes 3 overtimes to finally get past Xavier. And a Cinderella, I think Xavier was 11 seed that year. So to get past Xavier in the Sweet 16, and the Cinderella Butler, which was 5 seed, is waiting for him. But do you have enough legs just to get through that when it's a really good Butler team? And we know how good Butler is now, after that was the second year after they played in the national title the year before and lost to Duke. And then, that next year, you knew Butler was good. They weren't surprising really anybody.
March 2010 for K-State Xavier.
Was it
that
2010?
run.
Okay.
Yeah.
So then that was okay. So then I'm getting my So that was Butler then played Duke in the championship game after beating K-State. So I got my Butler championship game mixed up with Duke and UConn.
In 2011, K-State lost to Wisconsin.
So it was 2010 that took place. And I should know it was 2010 because 2011 I was watching the NCAA tournament in a different city. In 2010 I was watching the tournament at the 8-10 zone and watching that K-State Xavier game. So 2010. But it was an awesome game, and I think there was a Final Four team for K-State if things are a little bit different. And Mizzou and UConn could have been a Final Four team if it wasn't for some freshman punk named Kimball Walker that came off the bench and went crazy.
Jerk.
And just went crazy in that game. Had he not done that, had it just been like irregular, who knows? But it's ifs and buts. Candy nuts every day would be Christmas. We'll take a time out. We'll come back. We'll continue rolling. And we'll hear from some of the guys at the 101 Awards. I do want to talk some football. Football Morning in America. Peter King has 3 teams that he presents that could be interested in trading for Jalen Ramsey. One of those 3 teams being the Chiefs.
I have thoughts!
Yeah, no. I've got thoughts as well. Matt Tait coming up at 11 o'clock. Mick Shaffer, 1 o'clock. More Zone next.
Want to see more of The Zone? Watch the show live on the Sports Radio 810 WHB Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, and Twitch. You're in the zone
All right, welcome back here in the zone on ES. I did it
with Jason Anderson
right out of the gate.
on Sports Radio 810 WHB.
All right, we continue right here on Sports Radio 810 WHB. 913-912-4810 text says, Missouri's probably the only team in the country that would lose the game when they don't play defense and don't make shots. LOL. No, my point is they simply don't play defense that often in general. Whereas if KU doesn't make shots, they can still win the game. They can win a game in the first round. Well, they're going to be playing the 16 seed. But, if they don't make shots, they can still win a game because they do play defense. Mizzou's almost 200 in defensive efficiency at KenPom. And so if they're not making shots, then it's hard for them to find a way to win. I know. And I think that was the LOL at the end was joking as well. 913-912-4810. Text says, is Eddie Manga the next Carol Baskin?
Wow. Did something happen with Carol Baskin in the last year? Did her ex-husband get found alive somewhere?
That was like
I'm on it.
I figured that would have been a bigger story if that happened.
I know.
I saw something very briefly about that in sort of like
I'm writing this down for when Mick gets in because Mick will know this.
Tex said Xavier was a 6 seed. So what I'm saying is I nailed all of the details about that Xavier K-State game.
I will jump
the main
into...
ones being the fact that Jordan Crawford kept hitting some stupid shots, and it took 3 overtimes, and I think it took out the legs of K-State, and I think they beat Butler if they just simply win that game in regulation.
Carol Baskin.
Tex says, you have to score points to win, Jason. You can lose 3-2. Ask Beards. That is true.
It's a great point.
That is very true. 913-912-4810. Tex says, never forget it was a bogus shooting foul on a 3 at the buzzer that sent K-State Xavier game to OT in the first place. Yeah. And who knows what happens, moving forward after that. But that was a fun stretch of basketball locally, and I'm hoping we are heading that way. There's a scenario where KU's a 1 seed. Well, that is the scenario of it in the Big 12 tournament. KU's a 1 seed. K-State's a 2 seed. And Mizzou's the 4 seed in the SEC. Like, that's a real possibility. This time next week, we're talking about a 1, a 2, and a 4 in their conference tournaments. That KU and K-State could be matching up on Saturday night at the T-Mobile Center for the championship in the Big 12 tournament, which would be unbelievable. Because K-State's got the tiebreaker over Texas, and they need, let's see, Texas has TCU on the road and then KU at home. So K-State needs Texas to lose 1 game and K-State win out. And then K-State would have the tiebreaker over Texas. Because at that point, Texas, because it would be the like opponents of the teams that are above them, so K-State would have the tiebreaker via a win over Kansas, and Texas would not then have that win over Kansas if they lost to Kansas the last game of the season. So, K-State could be the 2 seed, KU the 1, Mizzou a 4 in their conference tournaments. So that'd be pretty awesome.
I can't necessarily fully confirm that Carol Baskin's dead husband is still alive.
Okay.
She has said, quote, they said my husband, Don Lewis, is alive and well in Costa Rica.
Oh.
But this was a Homeland Security thing she's claiming. The timeline on it is very, very fuzzy. The final sentence on this New York Post story is, Lewis has not made any public statements debunking rumors that he had died.
If he did die, it'd be tough for him to do that.
Sure would.
Wow.
It really would. Not totally sure what's going on.
Oh, really? Here. If he's so dead, why don't you ask him? But can't.
To Carol Baskin's credit, her ex-husband has not come out to say that he is in fact dead.
And to Carol Baskin's benefit, usually the best witness in a murder trial is the one that's been
the top
dead.
suspects and okay, got it. Yeah,
The best witness in a murder trial is the one that's no longer with us.
Sure, absolutely. And the second best witness would be potentially the top suspect, who is definitely here to say, "Hey, no, he's totally fine. I got a text that said he was cool in Costa Rica."
Prove that happened. Nobody else was there. Yeah, we'd love to prove it, but the person that can prove it is not here with us anymore. You understand that?
I'm not convinced.
Fed to a big cat.
Allegedly,
somewhere.
potentially.
Here, kitty.
Yeah. No evidence. So far, Carol Baskin's husband has not come out to say that he wasn't turned into cat food.
Okay, very good. Very good. 913-912-4810 is the text line. We're getting into some football here. So
Snopes rates this as unproven, by the way. So that's where we're going to keep that one.
Well, it's just unproven. Doesn't mean it's false.
Doesn't mean it's false.
Just hasn't been proven yet.
Myth not busted, just also not confirmed.
So, Football Morning in America, Peter King, writes about Jalen Ramsey. Jalen Ramsey will play his age 29 season this year. In his last 3 seasons, PFF has ranked him 16th, 4th, and 11th rated cornerback in the league in coverage grades, so he's still a quality player at a need position. He's got 3 years left on a contract that's due to pay him $17 million this year. That's base salary, by the way, so that would be cap hit. My projection is the Rams could get something between a low first-round pick this year, Dallas, Buffalo, and Kansas City could be interested, and a package of picks, perhaps a low 2 this year and a 4th-rounder this year or next, that could rise depending on performance or play time markers Ramsey could meet. Couple things here. That is Peter King just simply writing something of could be interested.
Could is the interesting word choice.
That is much different than Peter King saying the Rams are looking to trade Jalen Ramsey, and there are 3 teams that I've heard are interested, and it's Dallas, Buffalo, and Kansas City. He is putting together what he believes, as he says, my projection is the Rams could get something between a low first-round pick this year and then Dallas, Buffalo, and Kansas City, which are picks 26 to 31. That's low first-rounder this year, and then a package of picks. As he said, perhaps a low 2 this year, which the Chiefs wouldn't have a low 2 this year, and a 4th-rounder. But ain't nobody trading a first and second. There's 0 chance the Chiefs trade a 1st and 2nd round pick and a 4th-rounder this year or next year for the services of Jalen Ramsey to then pay him $17 million against the cap, which you could view as a bargain for the play he can bring to the table. But you've got Snead, you've got McDuffie, and you've got the team that seems to feel like there's a lot of promise in the younger cornerbacks. And you've got an issue with what do you do with Chris Jones? What do you do with Orlando Brown? And who's your wide receiver going to be? Like going into this offseason, the last place I would pick, one of the last places I would pick the Chiefs to spend big money on would be cornerback. And especially to pay twice.
Draft capital, free agency, whatever it may be, this is 1 degree stranger to me than the DeAndre Hopkins chat. That makes a little more sense because I do think there is some need at wide receiver, but it still doesn't. It's a weird fit. It's a weird timeline. I think there's probably a little more smoke to the Hopkins stuff. This doesn't make any sense in the world to me at all. I'm not trying to tell you that Jalen Ramsey and Rashad Fenton are the same player because they're not, but they traded Rashad Fenton for basically cap freedom because they didn't think there was value in putting anyone else above these young guys in the depth chart. Then they go on and win the AFC Championship game and Super Bowl. Specifically, I mentioned those because of the wide receiver matchups that are out there. And the AFC Championship game, they had to do without L'Jarius Sneed. This would be such a wild left turn. It was a surprise when they traded up for Trent McDuffie because they invested in the cornerback position. But, boy, it made sense. Rookie contract.
Yeah.
This is at a player that you thought fell below where his value actually should have slotted him. Great move. But at this point, if you trade Jalen Ramsey, L'Jarius Sneed is pre-gone. I mean, there is no extension for him. Yeah. I would much rather just figure out the numbers with Sneed and extend him and keep your draft capital and then stay younger and keep letting that be built around guys on rookie contracts. I like Jalen Ramsey. I've always liked Jalen Ramsey. This doesn't make sense to me.
It makes no sense to me either, and I don't think there's much to this other than Peter King saying who are picks low in the first round that could be interested in trading for Jalen Ramsey.
Yeah.
Well, Chiefs have the 31st pick. Also, he's saying my projection is that the Rams could get something, low first round pick this year, or between a low first round pick. So I guess it wouldn't be a 1, a 2, and a 4. It'd be a low first rounder or a package of picks, a 2 and a 4th rounder or something like that. Or a couple of 4th rounders or something like that. So it wouldn't take a 1, a 2, and a 4 to get Jalen Ramsey because nobody would be paying that price for Jalen Ramsey, who's going to be 30 years old and, is declining in play, is not the top, viewed one of, if not the number one cornerback in the league. You wouldn't pay that, but would you pay a low first rounder if you're Dallas? I don't know. Would you pay a low first rounder if you're Buffalo? I don't know. Tre'Davious White didn't have the season they thought. Kyer Elam didn't have, the season that they thought, which, by the way, comparing the McDuffie and Kyer Elam draft picks.
Yep.
McDuffie.
Trade up seems good.
Better season than Kyer Elam. So maybe Buffalo is still looking for that cornerback, but you get Von Miller on that contract. Is Buffalo then willing to trade a low first rounder for Jalen Ramsey when, by the way, their salary cap situation is much worse than the Chiefs.
And the Chiefs have a way to keep their risk nice and low. Mm-hmm. If anything goes wrong with any of their rookie corners, they'll probably draft another one in the third day at some point.
Yeah.
And if any of them take a step back or get hurt or whatever, that's not a $20 million cap issue to work around while you've also tied one hand behind your back because you've lost your late first or a pick of packages package of picks that gets basically that same value overall.
DeAndre Hopkins makes more sense to me. Not that it's going to be something that's a likelihood or is going to happen, but it makes more sense because the free agent market for wide receivers this year and this year is regarded as a weaker wide receiver class overall. Where last year was a stud group, that this year is a weaker class. Like if you're looking for a tight end, this is the year to go get a tight end. Maybe even like the second round, you can get a guy that in years past might have been a first rounder.
And they should.
I'm with that as well. But this is not the year to go. Second or third round wide receiver, pretty good. No, a couple guys at the top, and then that seems to be where people are viewing this wide receiver class. So if you've got a weak free agent class and a weaker wide receiver draft class in a year where you're wanting to go and get a bigger name wide receiver, Hopkins makes more sense. Whether that actually happens, I'd be much more willing to entertain, do they do that, than I will Jalen Ramsey. I think, this can be the only time we talk about this with Jalen Ramsey and the Chiefs, and it's because this morning Peter King just listed the Chiefs along with the Cowboys and Bills that could be interested for what could be his projection of what Ramsey could get if the Rams do trade him, which they could do or could not. We could take a break. Beards will be happy about that.
Follow the show on Twitter at J810Anderson, at JB Brisco, at Beards McFly, and at Sports Radio 810. The Zone with Jason Anderson.
Hey, Clyde, how's it going?
Uh-oh, you cut out a little on us there, Michelle. Can you try again?
Can you guys hear me?
Weekdays from 10 to 2 on Sports Radio 810 WHB.
All right, wrapping things up here on this first hour of the Monday edition of the show. We will hear from Jalen Hurts and Chris Jones and Isaiah Pacheco and Doug Peterson from the 101 Awards over the weekend. We'll continue talking some college basketball, some NFL, some Major League Baseball. The early returns and the rule changes are in. Love them. Love them. Mick Shaffer, 1 o'clock, KSHB 41 Sports Director. We get some Learn Funniest Best with Mick Shaffer and a number of other things to get into and talk about as well. Sporting KC season opener tonight in Portland. Couple of day delay because of an ice storm that went through Portland, but they get things going tonight. 8:30 pregame, 9 o'clock is when the game starts with Ali Trost. Play-by-play right here on Sports Radio 810. Awesome. Looking forward to that with Ali Trost making her the voice of sporting debut. Matt Tait next.
You're in the zone.
Food here?
Yeah, we'll keep asking questions.
Okay, yeah, go ahead. Go ahead, Jesse.
With Jason Anderson.
I was just curious.
Gary, I'm sorry, the food's here.
On Sports Radio 810 WHB.
All right, we continue right here on Sports Radio 810 WHB. Jason Anderson with you. Josh Brisco, Beards. We head up until 2 o'clock. We'll talk with Mick Shaffer, 1 o'clock hour, KSHB 41 Sports Director, our guest. Let's talk some college basketball. College bootball. College basketball. Matt Tait, Lawrence Journal World, KUSports.com, presented by 23rd Street Brewery, joining us here in the zone. Matt, what's up, man? How are you, sir?
I'm doing well. How are you?
I am doing just fine, The KU faithful there at Allen Fieldhouse let out a cheer. Grady Dick said, we found out when everybody else found out that loss took place with Texas. Did that impact the game at all in your mind with the KU players, or just sort of a sidebar of that game, which we knew there'd be scoreboard watching going on while KU was playing West Virginia?
Yeah, no, I don't think it affected them. I think, I think West Virginia made them fight and made that one ugly and scrapped, and KU had to survive, and they did. And there's some positives you can take from that, of course. But yeah, I mean, I've asked myself that a couple of times, and it's really, I guess, human nature to think that when you're playing the rest of this conference and you're playing top 10, top 15 team night after night after night after night, that there's got to be some sort of just, even if you don't want it to be there's got to be some sort of just exhale or relief or whatever when you're playing a team that's not ranked. It just has to be there. That's human nature. So I don't doubt that subconsciously even played some kind of role in that. But these guys are all genuine when they say how good this league is, and I know they buy into it and believe it, and they're not thinking anybody's an easy out. And so it's hard to think that was too big of a factor. And then, of course, yeah, the whole thing with the Texas loss is you've heard them say it year after year after year. They don't want to share the title with anybody. They want to win it outright. And so, the only way to do that, really, to guarantee that anyway, is by winning and making sure that, you take care of your side of it. So I'm sure they were locked in and focused, and I'm sure it was just one of those days. Again, West Virginia is a pretty good team, and they made them uncomfortable. And, I'm sure West Virginia left thinking, damn, we should have won that game.
Yeah.
Because they probably should have. But if anything, that tells you about Kansas, it's that, man, maybe these guys are as good as it seems like they might be, because if they can win a game where they don't bring their A game and still beat a pretty good team and scrap and fight to get it and not just win because everything clicked and you look good, that's a whole other dimension. And they've got to feel, in a lot of ways, really, really good about putting one of those under their belt.
Yeah, and depending on what happens tomorrow night and Wednesday, I mean, that game against Texas may not matter in terms of winning the Big 12, because, Texas going to TCU, that ain't that's I think Ken Palm has it as a 1-point win for TCU at 50% or 49, 51, 49. So that's going to be a toss-up game. But KU still has to take care of business with senior night tomorrow night. A little housekeeping before we get into some bigger things. DeJuan Harris, the foot. Bill Self, a couple of days off. Hopefully be ready for senior night coming up on Tuesday night, but just the last home game. Have you heard anything since that game on Saturday of DeJuan's foot, and will it cost him a game or two, and how serious it might be?
I don't think they're overly worried about it.
Okay.
I think because of his importance, you do have to worry a little, but I don't think it's a total panic situation by any means. They did a I'm sure it was an NIL type of thing or whatever, but they did something at the Lawrence Humane Society yesterday, and they all got to hang out with some cats and promote the good work that the Humane Society does, and DeJuan was there, part of that. No brace, no boot, nothing. He just had on slides and socks and looked like a normal dude. So I'm sure if it was, something major, there would have been some kind of precaution in that photo that we would have seen or whatever. And what I've been able to gather a little bit is I think, he's tough. He may be uncomfortable. It may be sore. It may be something he has to deal with and play through a little bit, but I'd be surprised if it keeps him out. He was talking about, on the radio broadcast after the game on Saturday, he was already talking about how much it meant to him to go out and win for the seniors and do his part. So there was no indication there either that he was that he was even thinking about this being something serious. But again, because of his importance and because of the night and day difference that this team looks to have when he's on the floor and when he's not, you have to take note of it. You have to worry about it a little bit, and I'm sure they're giving him around the clock treatment, as much rest as he needs. This is a guy that doesn't need to practice, right? I mean, it's kind of like Pat Mahomes. If he's hurt and the biggest thing you need to do is take care of that ankle, you're going to take care of that ankle. You don't have to worry if he knows the playbook. You don't have to worry if he knows how to bring his A game or be into the game. You know he's going to be. And I'm not saying DeJuan Harris is Pat Mahomes. Nobody should take that out of context. But maybe the Kansas version of that.
Another quick one, and pardon my ignorance, I may have missed this, and this might already be out there and known. But is Jalen Wilson going through senior night tomorrow night, or is it just going to be McCullough that goes through some of those festivities?
Yeah, no, Jalen and Kevin are the two that are supposed to grab the mic and do the speech and all of that. And that's we're still in the aftermath of the COVID year being a factor here because there are some other guys that are quote unquote seniors, but all of the rest of them I believe will be back, and they're expecting that. And so they give the guys the opportunity or the hey, Jalen and Kevin could both come back. They won't, but they both could, and so there's a lot of that goes on with this of hey, do you want to go through it? Do you want to talk? Do you not? And so they put some of that in the hands of the players. But yeah, those two will do the senior speeches. We're talking to both of them here in a little bit today, and it's no surprise, and I think it'll be pretty cool. Like Jalen's the long tenured guy. He's been around, and I'm sure his speech will be pretty cool. But I think in a lot of ways, as weird as the portal is and all these things that change over the years now, it's the senior speech from a guy who's here 1 year is pretty cool too. I mean, I think that's there's some fun in that because they're different. They're usually a little shorter, of course, but they're also it's a different perspective entirely. So it adds to the night. But yeah, those two are the only guys doing it tomorrow, as far as I've been told.
Matt Tait is our guest. Lawrence Stone World, KUSports.com, presented by 23rd Street Brewery. Jalen Wilson, Bill Self said last night, in a conversation with Greg Gurley on Saturday, in a conversation with Greg Gurley, saying, got to find a way to get him going. That he's pressing a little bit right now. He is 1 of 13 in the last 4 games from behind the arc. Hasn't had a whole lot of trips to the free throw line outside of that game against Baylor. Is he pressing? Is it, just wearing down over the course of the season and a good stretch of the season, him being kind of the guy that had to score, 20, 38, 30, 23, 20, 26. Like he was sort of the guy when they were going through those struggles. What are you seeing from Jalen and what do you think KU can do to get him back going again to where he's that guy that's, unanimous All-American and one of the best players in the nation?
Sure, yeah. No, I wrote a little something about this maybe a week ago or so, but I really think it's a lot less to do with him and a lot more to do with everybody else. I think that we're going to see and trust that other guys can score and contribute. And, of course, they've been talking about DeJuan doing that all year. Yeah. Everybody's been, be aggressive, shoot the ball, shoot the ball, shoot the ball. And he's starting to do it without having to be told right now. So that's one. But, Kevin McCullough's more aggressive. He looks good in his offensive sets now because he's not relying on his jumper, which isn't there. He can make jump shots, but that's never the first option. So he's driving, slashing, getting into the paint, and getting to the free throw line. There's 3 points because he's a really good free throw shooter. But beyond that, everybody, even Ernest Uday's maybe good for 6 points a game now if he gets the minutes. And I just think that Jalen is so selfless and so willing to just, hey, if we win, I don't care who does what. And that's how he's been wired his entire time here. And I think now he's just starting to trust a little bit more that those guys around him can deliver that. I forget, it was either after the TCU game or the Baylor game. I can't remember which one it was when I wrote that, but it was basically there were 10 points off the bench that you didn't expect. It was TCU, that's what it was, because MJ Rice had 2 of them on a transition layup. Bobby Pettiford had 2, and then Ernest had 6. Well, there's 10 points that you weren't getting earlier, right? Those guys weren't scoring at all, let alone playing at all. So I think Jalen maybe only had 7 points that night. Well, rewind a little bit. Without those 10 going to those guys, Jalen may have had to get 17. But now, if those guys can go get 10, he might only need to get 7, 10, 12, whatever it is. But I do think, to your point, they still need him to be the guy that when everything's on the line, they put the ball in his hands and let him go get it. Now, probably with Kansas and the way they're wired and the way this team operates, that's still going to be the ball's in DeJuan's hands, right? And he's going to make the play. Maybe not for himself, but possibly, but probably for someone else. So, I don't think Jalen's pressing at all. I think he's totally comfortable with his game, where he's at, and I still think he's as confident as ever. I just think he's getting more help, and that's kind of why you're seeing it turn into what it's turning into with his offensive output. But his jump shot is so good right now, and he hasn't made them all the time lately. He's not even taking some from three-point range in the last few games. But every time he shoots the ball, it seems like he makes good decisions. Maybe not every time. I shouldn't say that, because sometimes he still drives a little wild and throws some shots up. But that's at least the aggressive attacking style. I think when he pulls an outside shot, it always looks like he's comfortable in rhythm. He's not forcing and jacking up shots out there. So I feel like those will fall again. It's just a matter of, do they get the opportunity to go up, and does Kansas need them to?
Matt Tait is our guest. It felt like Bill Self was kind of trying to balance we all understand it's tough to win in the Big 12, and this conference is really difficult, and West Virginia is still a good team. I mean, heck, they're, number 20 in KenPom, so it's not exactly like, you're going up against, a 120th team in KenPom. So it felt like Saturday, Matt, that he was trying to balance we really didn't play our best game, and there's some issues there, but also, hey, there's a positive to take away. Hey, you know what? We were humbled, but it's better to be humbled in a win. Hey, you know what? Still the best team. They might have been better today. It's tough to win in the Big 12. If that was a second-round game, the season would be over. Like, it kind of felt like Bill Self was sort of talking to himself, like making a little counterpoint of, the Big 12 is really tough. Also, there were some issues there. But damn it, the Big 12 is tough. But we could have played better. But damn it, the Big 12 is tough.
Yeah, I think that's – he was basically making his list of what he needs to go over in practice the next time they meet, or film session or whatever. And he was doing, and this is nothing new. Self told those guys all of that, I'm sure, but he also likes talking to his guys through the media. He's never been afraid to do that, and whatever it takes to get their attention, for sure. But I think that that was about as good as it could have gone, because they've been rolling lately. They've looked really good, and they've played really good basketball. And I think for them to show everybody, but especially their coach and themselves even, that they're still capable of not playing well and looking, very average in a hurry. I think that was, probably the best thing that could have happened to this team, because it will remind them of exactly all those things you just said, and it will get their attention. And if anything, it'll be that late season switch that they can even flip into a higher gear, because we've seen that with the last few teams, certainly last year's team, and really even the team before that ended up going out in bad fashion in the tournament. But to get to the point where they were a top 4 seed and to finish hot in the Big 12 and all that, they flipped the switch late too. So, Jalen mentioned that the other day, that every team he's been on here has been kind of a team that does that. They understand the grind, they pace, and then they realize there's a time and it has to flip. And if you don't flip it, you're in trouble. And so I think there's a lot of this team that probably thought they had already flipped that switch, and how could you not? Winners of 5 in a row, beating Baylor, beating Texas, looking really good. All those things. But this was that probably one really fortunate and probably necessary reminder that maybe it isn't flipped all the way on yet. So let's not forget to do it. And we'll see what that leads to tomorrow night. But I think that it couldn't have gone much better. To get the win and not hurt yourself on a day you don't play well, and you play bad enough that your coach can really lay into you and get your attention. It just doesn't. You can't draw it up better than that. And you can't go ask for that either. You can't create that. It has to happen naturally and in a real sense, and it did. And we'll see if they benefit from it. But I'd be shocked if they don't. I think that was about as a perfect scenario as it could be.
Matt Tait is our guest, Lawrence Journal World, KUSports.com, presented by 23rd Street Brewery. The final defensive possession, Bill Self talked about it, and look, there is no way that a college team or really any team can tap into that focus and effort and just discipline in a defensive possession every single time down the floor. It's just not going to happen. But to me, that possession, even happening once in a game and a play of that magnitude, shows really what KU can do and how good defensively they can be when McCullough and KJ Adams and Jalen Wilson are switching. And you can have those three guys all guard Toussaint, a point guard, and to the point to where they couldn't get a good shot and end up traveling. And Bill Self is right. You can't channel that every single possession, but they have that where so many other teams can't come close to being able to do that with three different guys that can switch off and guard a point guard.
Yeah, well, and how about to do that without the one on the floor?
That's right.
I mean, that's the one thing that maybe is getting a little bit overlooked because it was such a good defensive possession by everybody out there, which Joe Yusufu was in his spot. But I mean, they did that without their best defender. That's insane. And you're right. I mean, if you watch the replay, and I know you have and others have too, I mean, KJ, that's the one that jumps out at me. I mean, he is so good at that, and he's so comfortable doing that. And the one thing you don't have to worry about with KJ Adams when he switches like that is he going to get lost? Is he going to fall asleep? Is he going to be a step slow? No. The kid is always just hyper turned up in those situations. And people may remember it was the end of the first half against Miami in the Elite Eight last year. And McGusty, the former Oklahoma player who had kind of hit KU hard in that first half. And Miami had the lead in that Elite Eight game, even though KU won by 30 almost. It was easy to forget that Miami had a lead and was kind of controlling that game. And McGusty was the guy doing it. They had a chance to add to their lead, and same thing happened. And it was right in front of me in the United Center there. It was KJ switched on to him, and here you got a freshman, right? And it's playing a pretty big possession. And same thing, man. He locked in. He was so focused, so turned up, so quick twitch. Everything about his energy and effort in those moments is just off the charts good. He got the stop. It was a momentum boost for KU and for him personally, and then they came out and destroyed him in the second half. So he's amazing at that, and what a luxury to have because, there are some things that playing him create that are disadvantages for KU, especially on the offensive end at times. But, boy, on the defensive end, to have a guy that can do that is just phenomenal. I mean, Josh Jackson was a guy that comes to mind who could kind of guard all five spots and switch like that. But he wasn't doing it in the body of a defensive end. Josh was a basketball player. KJ's a monster. So I think you're right. I mean, the fact that they can do that is important. And it doesn't have to be at game point. It can be like we just talked about at the end of a half even where coming through in that sort of situation can be a momentum lift and can really just get you back on the right track. It can be, for random possessions where you're just trying to maybe turn things up or flip the momentum or just get your spark or whatever it is. They have a lot of times and opportunities and ways that they can pull that out if they want to. But, yeah, if it comes down to it, it's just like against Carolina in the title game. I mean, those guys, could they have made a different decision and fouled? They could have, but everyone in that huddle said, we want to guard them. Let's guard them. And so Coach Self said, sure, go ahead. It's on you now, though. You guys asked for it, so you better get the stop. And they did, and that's that whole culture of what Kansas basketball is under Bill Self. He gets through to these guys, whether it's in the off season or during the season or, in a timeout late in the season, whatever. I mean, at some point he always gets through to them the importance of getting stops and how key that can be to where you want to go. So, yeah, they showed it there, and that was a phenomenal possession. And yeah, he'll hold them to a higher standard because of it now. But you're right. I mean, he knows it. You know it. Everybody knows it. You can't do that for 40 minutes.
Matt Tait, Lawrence from the World, KUSports.com, presented by 23rd Street Brewery. Should be a fun final week and setting up for what could just be a monster Big 12 tournament here at T-Mobile Center. Cannot wait for that. Matt, great stuff. Appreciate the time as always, sir. Enjoy the last couple of games. We'll be reading and checking all the coverage out, and then see you here next week in KC for the Big 12 tournament.
How good does that sound? Next week, I like the sound of that. It's going to be a lot of fun. You're absolutely right, and yeah.
Hello.
Here and
Matt. Yes. That'll be fun Friday. I don't know what happened there.
What happened there?
I don't know.
I didn't do nothing.
It was awesome. Matt, love
do I
you.
need to text
Thank
Matt
you, sir.
and tell him we didn't hang up on him? Or
Cannot wait for next week. We'll see you here in KC at the T-Mobile Center for what should be just an awesome dynamite Big 12 tournament. So.
Sounds great. Can't wait. See you there.
Yes. Looking forward to hearing that Friday at about, 1:45 or so, 1:50. Thank you to Matt Tait, joining us. And again, I'd mentioned in the first hour, depending on what happens these last couple of games for the three local schools, I mean, we could be talking about this time next week that the seeds in the conference tournaments, the 1-seed KU, the 2-seed K-State, and in the SEC, the 4-seed Missouri Tigers, which just be crazy. We'll take a timeout. We'll come back, continue rolling. More Zone next.
Take the show with you by listening live on 810WHB.com, in the 810 mobile app, or by subscribing to The Zone wherever you get your podcasts. Windows. The Zone with Jason Anderson.
Text says, love you guys, or excuse me, says like you guys. I apologize. Another text said, love the show. Sorry, I've combined those. I apologize. Like you guys. I don't want to exaggerate.
Weekdays from 10 to 2 on Sports Radio 810 WHB.
All right, we'll continue right here on Sports Radio 810 WHB. Jason Anderson with you, Josh Brisco and Beards, heading up until 2 o'clock. 913-912-4810 is the text line to join us to be a part of the show. 913-912-4810 to weigh in today. Text says, is Mitch Lightfoot going to speak out of habit at the senior day?
I think he should just sort of, and he should be that's a new form of super senior. He's a super duper senior. We're trying to get super duper back in the lexicon, right? Super duper wild card weekend.
Yeah.
Mitch Lightfoot, super duper senior. Maybe you can have one super duper senior on the team at all times. How about that? Where you get infinite eligibility until someone else takes that slot from you. So it could have been Perry Ellis until Mitch Lightfoot needed it. Or right now, what if it was Remy Martin? What if Remy Martin was your, because he's playing overseas?
Yeah.
So what if Remy Martin's your super duper senior?
Yeah, but I mean, no, because he only had one. So you got to have somebody that was around for a while, like Perry Ellis for 10 years.
Okay, so it can't be like a transfer thing.
No.
It's got to be someone who has at least
started and
at
ended.
least 3 years. I think probably 4. And Lightfoot, it's 5 or 6 years.
And Perry Ellis was a decade.
And he was.
Yes.
I just think it's incredible with the technology we have now, where we can go back and see Perry Ellis, what he would have looked like in full color, because he clearly was playing back in black and white television days.
Back when they started with the talkies.
Yeah,
before it was just the silent movies.
Perry Ellis highlights are kind of funny because, the timing's not quite right because they have to hand crank the camera for the playback. It's like watching Babe Ruth circle the bases in like 4 seconds. It's like double time.
Those different random dots that pop up throughout the screen, too. Text says, Peter King saying this meaning that Peter King saying that Jalen Ramsey could be traded, and Dallas, Buffalo, and Kansas City could be places they go to. Text says, Peter King saying this is the same value as Jay Glazer saying Reed may retire. Yeah. So and about the same weight and conversation put into it.
I think it's slightly different because we know Peter King has relationships with the Chiefs. The Jay Glazer thing I thought was relatively easy to see through because I had that thought earlier when I sent you the link this morning because not every the Chiefs could be interested. Not all of those are worth the time, but we know Peter King occasionally is allowed on Andy Reid's car at 4 a.m. to drive to the facility, right? Like he's the one who got corn dog from. I don't think Andy Reid's giving Peter King personnel plans, but I do think it stands to reason that he has some relationships with the Chiefs. I just don't think that move makes any sense in the world.
Text says, hey Jason, could you say could one more time?
Could you?
I could not. I'm not sure. The Chiefs could extend Chris Jones this offseason. They could trade him. They could just go into this year playing on his final year of a contract with a massive cap hit. All of those things, any one of those things could happen. Chris Jones did receive the AFC Defensive Player of the Year award at the 101 Awards, and Stephen St. John was able to ask a few questions to Chris Jones after that is over, some of that including the contract situation for Chris Jones heading into this offseason. So here is Stephen St. John and Chris Jones starting off with St. John asking him about, it's been a couple of weeks now. Is it sunk in, the Super Bowl champions?
This feels good, actually. Kind of had a week or two to just some downtime to actually think about it, recap over the season, get my body healthy, and just enjoy the moment right now.
How important is it for you to stay in Kansas City long term?
That's always been the goal since I was drafted here. I want to be one of those players that's in the Ring of Honor to live up to Derek Thomas type of legacy.
If you started to have any conversations with the Chiefs, you got 1 year left in your contract, what's that process going to be like?
I don't know. It's it'll eventually work itself out. I'll let my agents handle all of that.
You were the best player in the league by many people's accounts defensively, and you can command whatever you want. Would you be willing to take a more more reasonable deal to stay in Kansas City, or are you going out to capitalize on the great season you had?
I mean, of course, I love to stay in Kansas City forever. I think both sides will get something worked out where I'm here for the next phase of my career. How you doing?
Congratulations on getting another ring, by the way.
Thank you.
You talked during the season about Joe Collin, how you thought he helped you this season. Can you kind of elaborate on maybe the reasons, what Joe did in particular that you feel was good for your game?
I think we kind of analyzed me as a player and pointed out my strength and weakness, and we made a commitment on getting better on my weakness and improving on my strengths. Just this commitment, his dedication to the improvement of the D-line especially. I think that played a huge factor. His understanding on what type of players he have, understanding on the importance of pass rushing, and I think we kind of mended together.
Yeah, so what did you guys do? Did you guys break down video?
A little bit of it all. Whether it's breaking down video, different drills every day, watching other players, seeing what they do best, seeing what we can get from other players. So it's a lot more of just breaking down, understanding each other, building chemistry.
After the Super Bowl win, after the 2019 season, the motto was run it back. What is it this year?
Back to back.
Back to back for the Chiefs, we shall see. And I would be shocked if Chris Jones isn't wearing number 95 for the Chiefs next year out there at Arrowhead Stadium. Said that he wants to stay long term, wants to continue playing at a high level in a Chiefs uniform and be like, Derek Thomas, and would like to stay in KC forever. And said, I think both sides will work something out. I hope that's the case. I think there are two choices for the Chiefs this offseason, and it was discussed a lot during the regular season, much to the chagrin of Josh Brisco. One of two things: either you extend Chris Jones, give him a multi-year contract, or you trade him. Because going into the last year of his contract doesn't seem to be very viable with the salary cap hit, and also I would guess Chris Jones would like a new deal. And he has performed at a level that he's certainly deserving of that. The question is going to be, what's the best interest for the Chiefs moving forward? Is it paying Chris Jones, keeping him around for the next 3 or 4 years? Or is it trading him, getting draft picks, continuing to reorganize and build up assets and give yourself more and more flexibility in the cap in the next couple, 3 years while you are younger and cheaper and have the draft capital, while other teams are putting more and more money into their teams to try to catch the Chiefs? I think both strategies could work because the Chiefs proved that they were able to do it without Tyreek Hill. But working doesn't necessarily mean winning a Super Bowl. And I can make a pretty strong case that without Chris Jones on the field in Miami, the Chiefs don't beat the 49ers. And I can make a really strong case that without Chris Jones on the field in the AFC Championship game against the Bengals, it would be Cincinnati versus Philadelphia in Phoenix. And I would have had a miserable time in Phoenix covering the Super Bowl if Chris Jones wasn't there. So I get the strategy of, well, you trade and you get draft picks and you can, have flexibility in different ways. And look what happened last year with Tyreek Hill. But Patrick Mahomes can make up for a lot of different things on the offense. And this is something we've discussed, that trading Tyreek Hill, you still had Patrick Mahomes and Travis Kelce. Trading Chris Jones, you don't then go, yeah, but they still have this incredibly dominant player that you can rely on and still build the defense around. Chris Jones is that guy, that dominant player that showed up in the postseason when it was legacy time for Chris Jones, and he had a brilliant game against the Bengals in a day where the offense couldn't get much going and the wide receivers were all injured and Mahomes was still having trouble moving around and L'Jarius Sneed wasn't there in that game and Willie Gay in essentially the entire second half wasn't out there playing after he got injured, and Chris Jones in that front four had to be awesome, and they were, and he ended that game, at least from the Bengals offensive possession, with that sack on 3rd down and 8.
Yeah.
And he did it a number of times. I don't think it's great strategy if you're trying to win the Lombardi Trophy over the next couple of years to move on from Chris Jones, to say, yeah, but you can continue to keep your window open in 25 and 26 and 27.
Yeah. There are so many different places where these conversations can splinter off, I think, interestingly, right? But like within just sort of the scope of understanding the value of Chris Jones, there are no absolutes in any of this, right? Which I guess is sort of an absolute statement, so, only Siths and all of that. But going with absolute rules set in stone for how you build an organization, I don't think is a very good way of doing business, because you're not going to get the exact same, pieces of code. This isn't Madden, right? You actually have to, be able to account for the larger picture and figure out how you raise the level of your roster where you can. And one of the things that I think this is a mindset that I think is generally true, but I do think it gets a little too powerful when you try to apply it to a guy like Chris Jones, where you say, hey, as a defense, or I also think this is true really in both sides of the trenches, so this could be true for an Orlando Brown conversation as well, particularly in the trenches, and really all around football. The weakest link sort of mentality, wanting to have a bunch of red chip players if you can't have all blue chips, I think there's something to that, where you do not want to have one exploitable matchup problem for the other team to pick on. You must all be this tall to ride, and then if you can get taller than that, that's great. But you really don't want to have like one vacuum somewhere. If you have Chris Jones and I was going to say 3 rookie cornerbacks, but obviously for the Chiefs, that doesn't mean what it usually means for most teams. Mm-hmm. If you have Chris Jones and then a number 30 in the league secondary, Chris Jones is being wasted, right? Like, he is not able, and no defensive player on their own is able to be one superstar on a roster full of subpar, below average players. But when you're in a place now where this Chiefs defense is, where you've got a lot of, and I mean this as a compliment, you got a lot of average players on this defense now, or better, right? But there aren't really any huge weaknesses. Even guys like Carlos Dunlap, much later in their career, they come in, they are this tall to ride, and their arms are this long to swat down passes. But like you see the water level of the entire unit rise. Then you add in a planetary force like Chris Jones, where he is Jupiter in this defense, right? Like, you talk about the gravity of a player, the attention that has to get paid to that one individual guy as the other teams are game planning. There is a force multiplying factor by having Chris Jones that, where, again, if you would have said, hey, trade Tyreek Hill because your offensive line was a mess still, and the Chiefs would have used all of those Tyreek Hill picks to fix their offensive line, that's a move that makes sense to me, where trading Tyreek Hill for A.J. Brown, is a totally different logic. So there are a lot of moving pieces, and there are a lot of reasonable ways you can look at team building. But I think when you get the specifics of where the Chiefs defense stands right now and where Chris Jones is right now, it would be more devastating to lose Chris Jones in a tall enough to ride defense that they now have than it even would have been in years past, where this defense was underachieving and you saw a lessened impact from Chris Jones because no one else was doing anything with the attention they weren't getting.
I want to ask this question, and we'll take a break and we'll answer it on the other side and just give our thoughts.
Whole break to think about it?
The question is, what was the lesson of last year's offseason? And I asked the question, Eric Eager had a Twitter thread over the weekend talking about Orlando Brown and Chris Jones and different decisions that have to be made by the Chiefs in this front office and how you structure everything under the cap and how you build this team and decisions that have to be made. And looking back to what happened last year, and his point being, signing all these guys, you missed the point of what the lesson of last year's offseason was. So I do want to know, what was the lesson of last year's offseason? We'll talk about that next.
You're in the zone with Jason Anderson on Sports Radio 810 WHB. The Zone with Jason Anderson.
You're dumb, but you're not stupid.
Weekdays from 10 to 2 on Sports Radio 810 WHB.
All right, so we asked the question, what's the lesson of last year's offseason to take away as we then get ready for this offseason? Because I think beauty is in the eye of the beholder with this one, that I think people can come to different conclusions of what they feel the lesson was from last year's offseason. To me, the lesson of last year's offseason is the Chiefs' ability to be fluid. And with many different ways of attacking the offseason and different strategies, that one leading to the other depending on the route that it goes, kind of a flow chart, that if this, then these are the things that happen, and then on to the next one, if this, then these are the things, and looking like a Plinko board in, The Price is Right as you get all the way down to the end, which ended up being Super Bowl champion. And there were a lot of things that happened along the way. But we also have to remember that the strategy for the Chiefs last year to start the offseason was to pay Tyreek Hill. Was to pay him and to keep Tyreek Hill. The strategy for the Chiefs was not trade Tyreek Hill, get the draft picks, get younger, cheaper, deeper, and figure out the offense without Tyreek Hill. That was the fluidity. That was the adjustment to when you start to read the market and the tea leaves as to where it's going. To me, the lesson of last year is how fluid the Chiefs can be in adjusting and still having a game plan to maximize what happens this offseason and not say, well, if this number one thing doesn't happen, we are screwed. Because the last couple of off seasons, they've been able to do that. Clearly, they wanted to pay Trent Williams. Didn't happen.
Right.
They had to go get Orlando Brown.
Yeah.
They had to figure out another way of attacking it. And they went to an AFC championship game and had the worst half of Mahomes' career. And that kept them from a Super Bowl. And then the next year, reorganizing so many different things and coming up with 10, 11 different starters from the year before, and they win a Super Bowl. To me, the lesson was the fluidity of the Chiefs front office and being able to adjust on the fly the strategies.
I'm a little annoyed that we had relatively similar answers because I had went ahead and decided over the course of the break that I was going to frame it as being flexible on your toes, where when the terminology of the terms of your offseason begin to shift underneath you, do you just grab onto something nearby and say, this is what we're going to do, we're going to stick with this? Or are you able to hop around a little bit and figure out, okay, what can we do to maximize what this team uniquely is qualified to be able to do, which is why I don't think that most of these times we end up coming up with blueprints for how to build a roster. It is so often, almost every instance, it is going to be dependent on where you're starting from, right? For the Chiefs, they're building and rebuilding around the best quarterback currently living. So their game is different than how the Lions are doing it right now, right? Because they've got a really good roster, but they'd love to add one of the top 5 quarterbacks currently living to their mix. How are they going to do that? There are some consistent things, right? You obviously don't want to have bad contracts for long periods of time. You want to get rookie quarterback contracts on your, overachieving their value. That's a huge cheat code. But in terms of what we've learned from not just the last Chiefs offseason, but what we've seen from this regime with Brett Veach and everyone else in this front office, I think we have seen the value of being flexible when things around you begin to shift. So making Chris Jones and Tyreek Hill the same player is really, you're trying to simplify things, but you're losing a lot by going ahead and saying that the number one receiver on this team and the number one defender on this team have basically the same impact. Or again, the cost of Orlando Brown Jr. It would be better to not have a guy on the franchise tag in terms of your own 1-year flexibility. But tell me exactly why you would feel better about the offensive line as a whole next year if Orlando Brown isn't there. No one thinks the Chiefs should just let him walk because everyone acknowledges that he has some value if he were to get tagged and traded or whatever it may be. And I'm generally team acquire draft picks, acquire cap space. But I think that there is an overreaction to saying, it worked this way this time. Just make that the cookie cutter every step along the way when you're going to start applying it to players who aren't Tyreek Hill or to places on the Chiefs where it was like, after the Buccaneer Super Bowl, it was, they totally overhaul this offensive line. Well, next they're going to overhaul a different position. And they did end up overhauling wide receiver, but not in the same way that they did at the offensive line, and not where that was the plan the second the Super Bowl ended, right? Because they were looking at paying Tyreek Hill until things changed around them. So I just find it to be a little bit obtuse to try to do a Control-C, Control-V of last offseason to this offseason. Also because if you don't have an uncommonly good draft class, which the Chiefs did this year, you're probably not winning the Super Bowl off that strategy. Like they did, and there is a benefit now, but they're in a different stage. The idea that you ought to be and trade your best pending free agent for draft picks every single time you hit that, you eventually are, I guess keeping your window half open at all times, but I don't think the Chiefs' window opens up by losing Chris Jones at this point, even though moving on from Tyreek Hill worked because you could give Patrick Mahomes, the guy throwing the football to your receivers, you could give him 3 different options for less than the cost of what you sent away for Tyreek Hill and still overhauled the foundation of your defense. I just think it's apples and oranges and not nearly that simple.
Well, when you also look at the long-term health of the Chiefs and the salary cap, and you say, okay, the Chiefs don't have any bad contracts on their books long-term right now. Frank Clark, 1 year left. I mean, bad contract, but you can save $20 million this year if you release him. Chris Jones, not under contract after this year. Patrick Mahomes, not a bad contract. So if you say extending Chris Jones, eventually you're going to have to pay the price. Like eventually you're going to have to pay that money if you're looking at $29 million against the cap for Chris Jones this year. And if you extend him, therefore you drop that money this year to 19, 20. Maybe you're saving, if you just put a random $10 million saving for the Chiefs against the salary cap this year for Chris Jones. And if he's under the under contract through 2025, which you would expect that to be at least 3 years, so 23, 24, and 25. And if Orlando Brown signs, a 3-year deal, which I'm very fine with them playing one more year on the franchise tag with Orlando Brown.
Me too.
Even if it's a couple of years, I'm not a big fan of, here's a 5-year deal for Orlando Brown, and it's really 3, and then you can get out of it after 3 because you are then, Orlando Brown is your tackle for 3 years. Now, there is value in knowing that and saying, here's how we work around this everywhere else, and you've got that in place, so it isn't a big question mark or an unknown in 24, 25, things like that. But if you're saying long-term deals that are issues for the Chiefs, in 2025 for the Chiefs, outside of the draft picks that they have, and even throw Kadarius Toney in there, they traded for him, not a draft pick, but still. Outside of draft picks, because Toney wouldn't be on that. Well, he could have a 5th-year option.
Boy, does that transfer when a player gets traded? I got to know that.
Point.
I think they do.
It does. I think,
but I'm not sure. That doesn't happen very often. Also, Joe Tooney is out there. Not Tony, but Tooney. Yeah. And he becomes cuttable in 25.
It's like $17 million to cut Joe Tooney. So it would be Travis Kelce, Patrick Mahomes, and Joe Tooney are the ones that are on the team this year that are making money that will still be under contract in 2025. And let me just say that over the next 2 years, 23 and 24, I would hope that the Chiefs and Brett Veach and the front office and Andy Heck is your offensive line coach and Andy Reid that knows what a pretty good offensive lineman looks like, that over the next couple of years you can find a left guard that you don't have to pay $23 million to, a 33-year-old left guard. That you can find somebody to fill that role to where you can save the $17 million against the cap for Joe Tooney in 25. So essentially, you've got Joe Tooney for 2 more years. And you knew that when they restructured his deal last year and moved some things down the road that he wasn't really going to be cuttable after 23. So you got him for 2 more years, then he becomes cuttable after the 24 season. So that would leave Mahomes and Kelce under contract in 2025, plus the different draft picks. So even signing Chris Jones, and even if you had Orlando Brown, it doesn't then create like this bulk and this jumbled mess of all of these guys in 2025 as to how are you going to be able to navigate, what these salary cap numbers are going to be. And, that's also a $50 million Patrick Mahomes that year. Now, if you restructure his deal this year and save $27.5 million, you add $5 million to that. But it's $46.5 million or $46.3 for Mahomes. So add $5 million to that. So $51.3. So it's a $50 million Patrick Mahomes. And a bunch of rookies, Chris Jones, and maybe Orlando Brown and Travis Kelce there. So Mahomes and Kelce, Chris Jones, maybe Orlando Brown. That is not salary cap hell. That is not the New Orleans Saints. That is not what's Buffalo going to do. That is not the Chargers and figuring out Mike Williams and Keenan Allen and Justin Herbert and J.C. Jackson and whoever else that they're going to have there, and Khalil Mack and Bosa moving forward, and Derwin James and the Bengals in Burrow and Higgins and Chase and Hendrickson and guys in the secondary, offensive linemen that they're going to have to pay to continue to get better. That's not what they're going to be looking like in 2025. So Chris Jones under contract in 23 and 24, and if a massive cap hit kicks in 2025, it is not the Saints having to sell everything off and figuring out how do you get out from under all of these different albatross contracts. Because the only one you would have that is a huge salary cap hit would be Patrick Mahomes.
Right.
At $50 million. And I think you can work around that.
This is the thing where, again, I can live in both of these worlds a little bit, where on one hand, hey, I want to be able to plan for Trent McDuffie's extension, L'Jarius Sneed's extension,
yes,
right?
That's part of it.
And also, I think that there's the opposite of a tax for extending your own players because you're not having to beat the open market for those guys. So another reason to go ahead and extend the guys where you have the control. But I want to stay flexible, so if there is a free agent that makes sense in Kansas City, you have the ability to pay them down the road, and you're not having to do that emergency back of the napkin math. But also, what are you using all this cap space for? Who do you want to pay? I want to pay Patrick Mahomes, I want to pay Chris Jones, and then I will have more building blocks fill in the space around those two guys.
Yeah, Snead is a good point. So Snead, McDuffie, guys like that you would probably be extending them, or you think you're going to be extending
It's also the passage of time. Every team is doing that.
I think the lesson last year was that the Chiefs had different ways of attacking and were able to adjust on whatever the strategy was.
And it worked.
The NFL Draft is coming to Kansas. The Zone with Jason Anderson.
Shane, did you like Lord of the Rings show?
No, you nerds. Talk sports. Talk about Batman.
Weekdays from 10 to 2 on Sports Radio 810 WHB.
Look, I don't know what the Chiefs are going to look like when, this offseason is over, when they head to training camp, because a lot of people would have been dead wrong as to what the Chiefs were going to look like heading into training camp this last year. Would not have guessed that it would have been Tyreek Hill being traded, and definitely wouldn't have guessed, a lot of people wouldn't have guessed that they would have spent a first-round draft pick and traded up to get a cornerback. Because there was so much conversation about they don't spend resources on cornerback. So what are they going to do with Charvarius Ward? Are they going to let him walk? Are they going to spend that money? Tyreek Hill, you got to re-sign him. Orlando Brown, you're going to franchise tag him, and are you going to pay him all that money? There's so many different questions going into last offseason that there were different ways to get to training camp and say, here's what it looks like. And their route to training camp, and here's what it looks like, along the way, picked up a lot of people that said, this roster is not very good. Compared to the other teams in the AFC, this roster isn't very good. In fact, you can see people on Twitter arguing that nobody was doubting the Chiefs, that there's no reason for Travis Kelce gaslighting people, that we lived through it. And then you go back through their tweets and you find out last offseason they were saying the Chiefs are going to finish last in the West. The Chiefs have the worst roster in the West. There's one particular Bengals Twitter account that was going back and forth with people last week about, and call it what you want, rebuild, restructure, reorganize. I don't care what people call it. But it was people that this wasn't a rebuild. Look at this. And then you go back and you look and it's like, well, you said the Chiefs had the worst roster in the AFC West. Your tweets at that time, they picked those people up along the way that this roster is not good enough to win the division. So that was the route they took. I don't know what route they're going to take this year to get there. But if Chris Jones is traded, if Orlando Brown is not signed, if there's a lot of draft picks, and who knows where they end up at wide receiver, I mean, you could have the same conversation. But I think people are probably going to be once bitten, twice shy in saying what the Chiefs do in the offseason is going to equal no playoffs for this team.
The other thing that, just kind of dipping back into the last segment, also the great show we were doing in the break.
Oh, it was a fantastic show in the break. Beards, how did you enjoy that?
Best show we've had all day so far, I think. Best segment so far.
Yeah.
It was fun.
Yeah, I mean, Beards rave reviews.
That's actually pretty good.
But it's just so weird to me to also, to begin this State of the Union address with, all right, everybody, just imagine that this offseason the Chiefs are exactly the same team they were this time a year ago. It's like, well, wait a second, but they're not, though, right? We know that they're not on a variety of levels. There's some of the same core principles are still there. You got to make a decision on Orlando Brown again. You've got Patrick Mahomes at the center of it all. But pretty much everything else is very different. And Travis Kelce's still there, and everyone's still going is he going to get worse as he gets older? And everyone's like, apparently not. Cool, all right, fine. But the vast majority of things with this team are different from where they were last year. And again, I am very much here to embrace the sort of counterculture thinking of how you can not only build an NFL team, but continue to tweak your processes and keep your window open the longest possible once you have the coach and quarterback that will hold that window open by their own grit and will, if nothing else. Mm-hmm. I want to make that easier on Mahomes. I want to continue to prolong that window. All of these things are good in my mind. But to behave as if there is one singular way, one formula where you can do that never addresses the fact that you do have players who get better and worse. You have draft values that fluctuate. You have different draft classes that you will use your own picks on to then come into your team and figure out what their roles are going to be. This roster is in a much healthier top to bottom place than the roster it was at this time last year. The one place that it's worse is at wide receiver, and that's probably arguable if you want to go through the depth of it all, but the peak of it is worse because Tyreek Hill's not here. But that was a roster health offseason where they still then went on to win the Super Bowl. This doesn't have to be a roster health offseason. It always is to some extent, right? Get your draft picks right, and your roster health's always going to be better. But last year was like, hey, man, no one's seen you eat a vegetable in like 6 months. We're all worried. Have a salad. Last offseason, the Chiefs had a salad. This offseason, the Chiefs should have a little side salad and also a big steak with a big number 95 on it. Just order the steak, keep that, and then do continue to mix in some veggies now because we don't want to get into all those bad habits we've been in for the last couple of years. You don't want to use a first-round pick on a real luxury position. You don't want to spend the draft picks to acquire and then pay an older player. We've learned some of these lessons. Mix in your vegetables here now and continue to kind of both expand the depth of your roster and don't be in such a hurry to move away your peak talent because you want to acquire more of those guys through this process as well. Those guys on the rookie contracts, the best possible way to get it. Chris Jones on a rookie deal would be better than Chris Jones making $25 million a year. But that's not the conversation that we're having at this point, which most people who are very much roster churners do acknowledge. More draft picks is better than better draft picks, and draft picks are guarantees of absolutely nothing. That's the game we're playing here. I like draft picks and draft capital. I also think that it would be a wrecking ball to take Chris Jones out of this defense. That could all be true.
I also like the conversation that comes up of, let's say you restructure Patrick Mahomes' contract and you take that $27.5 million that you saved this year, okay? And you go, yeah, but you have to pay that eventually. Agreed, you do. So you extend that over 5 years. 2024, his cap hit, if I'm adding that money, all right, I'm going to add it. This is not what it is right now. This is with that money added in if you say you got to pay it eventually. 2024's cap hit is 49.3. 2025's cap hit is 51.3. 2026 cap hit is $47 million. That's with the $5 million added along the way. Now, if you want to look at how it compares to some other quarterbacks that are younger with new, freshly minted contracts, and I don't know what Justin Herbert and Joe Burrow and Jalen Hurts and Lamar Jackson and what those contract numbers will look like in 25 and 26. Not sure.
They're going to start with fives.
I think so too. But in 2024, Patrick Mahomes' $49.3 million salary cap number. Josh Allen has a $40 million cap hit. Deshaun Watson has a $54.9 million cap hit. So $5.6 million more Deshaun Watson. That's if you take the $27.5 you can save this year with Mahomes and add that. This is with saving $27.5 million.
What's the morality cap hit on Deshaun Watson there?
That is $5 billion. In 2025,
at least he was really good when he did play. Oh, he wasn't? What a shame.
Odd, right? In 2025, Patrick Mahomes' cap hit would be 51.3.
Sorry, I don't mean to derail your numbers,
you're
but
good.
Is morality cap hit a Beards McFly original?
I like it though.
I just came up with it then.
We trademarked that because the idea of players having a morality cap hit.
You have so much morality to be able to spend on a team.
I think that is actually a rich vein that was worth exploring at some point, and the Browns are way over the cap. Anyway.
No problem with that. In 2025, Patrick Mahomes' cap hit would be 51.3. Josh Allen would be around 51.3. Deshaun Watson would be 54.9 because his money is guaranteed, all of it. In 2026, Patrick Mahomes is $47 million. Josh Allen, oddly enough, $47 million. Deshaun Watson is $54.9 million. So they would essentially be doing and living in the land of the price of doing business with other quarterbacks because of what Mahomes allowed them to do with the contract that he signed, that he wasn't looking for the very top end, most money you could possibly get with no flexibility to the team, with no ability to be able to bring in other guys, that it was about being the number one quarterback. And every year there's a clause in his contract that says he has to have the most yearly cash than any other quarterback or something absurd like that because, damn it, that's what I'm worth. I'm going to get paid that his cap hit later on in his contract, when it's supposed to be ballooning, is going to be the same as guys that have signed it after him. And that's not even including yet Herbert, Burrow, Lamar, and Jalen Hurts. And Lamar Jackson's going to get paid by somebody. I don't know who that is, but he's going to get paid by somebody. Lamar Jackson, as the reports that have come out now, wants, at minimum, the bottom line for Lamar Jackson is the Deshaun Watson 5-year, $230 fully guaranteed $1 million. That's Lamar Jackson's baseline. I will start at a conversation with that. Everything I want will be fully guaranteed. Lamar Jackson turned down a 5-year, $250 million contract. It included $133 million in guaranteed. Apparently, he countered with a fully guaranteed contract. That was more than Deshaun Watson. The Ravens said, no, we're balking at the full amount of it being guaranteed. So, if the Ravens are not willing to give him a fully guaranteed deal, then they place the franchise tag on him, and they trade him for multiple first-round draft picks. But Lamar Jackson is traded to a team that's willing to pay him that money. Mm-hmm. You're not trading for him unless you're going to meet the demands of him saying, I want a fully guaranteed. If Deshaun Watson got a fully guaranteed contract, and this is what the Browns have done, and why the Browns doing that has sucked for other teams that are now signing quarterbacks, because those guys are going to say, how do I not get more guaranteed dollars than Deshaun Watson?
Yep.
And what I've done versus what he's done. And Lamar can say, I'm one of 2 unanimous MVPs of all time.
Yep.
And I can't get more than Deshaun Watson, who we know what's going on with him. So whenever he signs that contract, it's going to look like Deshaun Watson's. That's making, against the salary cap, $55 million. Deshaun Watson is against the cap. Lamar's going to be up there wherever he goes. And Herbert and Burrow are going to be up there. And Jalen Hurts is going to be up there. So Mahomes will be right around those guys. And that is including if you save essentially $28 million this year with the salary cap. So this is not a position where the Chiefs are just hamstrung and you're paying Mahomes this contract and you don't have any choice but to be able to go and either trade Orlando Brown or trade Chris Jones. You can't have them both. How are you going to get a wide receiver on this team because you got so many other options? Mahomes 27.5, Frank Clark 20. That's almost $50 million right there. And if you do extend Chris Jones, even if you say, well, save $10 million, so you pay him, $19 million against the cap this year. Well, now you're looking at $57.5 million you just saved by those 3 guys. And Chris Jones has been paid. So that's $57.5 million you have left over with Chris Jones already signed. Now go and deal with Orlando Brown, whatever it takes, wide receiver, what have you. This is not a position that the Saints were in or the Falcons were in because of the decisions that have been made already, including last year trading Tyreek Hill. That has given you the ability to be flexible this offseason and say, we can sign Chris Jones without saying in 2025 we are bleeped.
So obviously Mahomes is the immovable object in the Chiefs' long-term, contract view and all of that. Some of this I'll explain, and some of this you can decide if you trust me on it, and if not, you can find me around walking 5 miles around downtown Kansas City, and I can give you some more of the non-Cliffs Notes version. But the thing with Patrick Mahomes' contract, with that restructuring, the 5-year prorated bonuses and all of that, is they're always very flexible. They can do what they want with that money. We've talked about this many a time. As you've laid out with not only the current existing quarterback contracts, but also the ones in the future, Patrick Mahomes, especially when adjusting for the fact that he is Patrick Mahomes, through the entire life of this contract, he's never going to not be of value. Again, that's not even just me saying he's worth your entire cap. I mean, really, practically. This last season, Mahomes had the second highest cap hit of quarterbacks in the NFL, behind only Ryan Tannehill. As things stand right now for 2023, he would have the second highest cap hit, again, behind only Deshaun Watson, as his balloon's way up. And for Mahomes, that's if they don't restructure. They did not do that prorated restructuring this last season when they did go on and win the Super Bowl, which is bonkers.
Sidebar, which they traded Tyreek Hill. They did not restructure Mahomes' contract.
Right, buying themselves buying them $5 million of cap space the next 5 years, basically. That's the inverse of extending him would have done.
Because if they did that last year and you say, okay, they can save $28 million this year, then we'd be talking about 2024, he'd be $54 million. In 2025, he'd be $56, $57 million. Then you're saying, all right, I get it.
And they said, let me go ahead and play it out on the scheduled cap hit. They did it, and he was on the quarterback for the team that won the Super Bowl, being this team. So they could obviously lower that in 2023. He would drop way down. Even in 2024, when his cap hit would be $44 million with no adjustments either from this upcoming season or the next season, he's below Deshaun Watson, Dak Prescott, Kyler Murray, Matthew Stafford. That puts Mahomes at 5 without moving those numbers down and without starting to account for this new rookie class that's going to reset the market every time. Deshaun Watson's contract is going to be a sticking point because, as you said, fully guaranteed in spite of everything else. But these quarterbacks, especially if you're a Burrow or a Herbert, you say, look, all right, you're not going to blink on the guarantees. That's fine. I want my initial cap hit starting with 5s, and by the end of the deal, I want my cap hit starting with 6s. And if it's partially guaranteed, that's an argument they could legitimately make, and I think we will see a $60 million cap hit from one of those guys in the back half of their deal. We'll see when they reach it, but that's how this works. New quarterback sign, it resets the market. So the Mahomes deal with the guaranteed mechanisms, the rolling guarantees, and all of the little loopholes that went into it, he's never going to be anything other than a value for the Chiefs. So it's not like you're even planning around Deshaun Watson's contract when you're looking at these long-term views. And we talked about this some in the break, right? But the Chiefs right now aren't in a place where they have to use their salary cap space to plug a bunch of holes, to flex seal over a bunch of leaks in the ship, which again is eating your vegetables last offseason. Look at what your vegetables let you do. Here we are now. They are just so much more flexible than I think a lot of these conversations give them credit for because of the yearly chance to restructure Mahomes' deal in a way where, in practicality, he's going to get every nickel that's going to show up in him. That $500 million from Clark Hunt, he's going to get that and more. All of that's going to pay Mahomes fine. I don't think he's a martyr for this deal, but it is also the most team-friendly $500 million contract I've ever seen. It's also the only team-friendly $500 million contract I've ever seen. But that's meaningful here because there are practical implications for how you can continue to evaluate and reevaluate, not to go back and just belabor the Chris Jones thing again. But like when you have Mahomes on your offense, he can buy a little time behind a worse offensive line. He can find receivers that might not be open to Jared Goff. They're open to Patrick Mahomes. Like that is all within the fluctuating ability to retool constantly, and that's not going anywhere. So when you say you're going to have to pay the piper eventually, yeah, I guess. But Patrick Mahomes is actually under contract in 2027. Right now, that cap hits almost $60 million. Fine. Because the only other quarterbacks who are under contract in 2027, not even acknowledging, their dead cap hits or whatever, Mahomes, Russell Wilson, Kyler Murray, Josh Allen, which means every other quarterback who signs a contract extending them through that time, that's when those numbers are going to start with 6s. That's when Burrow and Herbert and maybe it's Hurts and maybe it's Lamar, and maybe by 2027 we're talking about Trevor Lawrence and maybe we're talking about Bryce Young, when his money starts to kick in. Like this is a long runway, and the Chiefs are ahead of the curve on all of it. So yeah, the bill eventually, air quotes, comes due. But if Patrick Mahomes plays under his current $50 million salary cap hit in 2023, when 7 more years of quarterbacking deals will have been signed, that number is going to look like a steal. They'll restructure before then. They'll get that adjusted around, and those numbers will evolve some. But the Chiefs and Mahomes are in a tremendously good place here.
So while we look at these quarterbacks that are going to be signing big contracts, and you say, and the reaction would be, and is right, well, yeah, but there's going to be a couple of years of them having cheaper cap hits before those numbers kick in. That's just simply what we see. So you can continue to take advantage of a quarterback on a cheaper contract and be able to sign other guys. So if you're the Bengals, I don't know, is it a $6 million cap hit for Joe Burrow this season? And a $12 million cap hit for Joe Burrow next year. So it allows the Bengals to have 2 more years of spending money elsewhere, whether that be Higgins or Chase or whoever, and be able to continue to build a team that is worthy to win a Super Bowl, to win an AFC championship, another one for them. But we were looking at the 2025 season because we're talking about if you have Chris Jones signed for at least 3 more years, it would put you into 2025 as the 3rd year of that contract when you would say, boy, this is going to be a big cap hit. You got to make a decision. Are you going to take a dead cap, or are you going to pay him what could be $30-some-odd million against the salary cap or more? And you've already got Patrick Mahomes. And if you restructure the deal this year, you're going to have to pay that eventually. Well, in 2025, that would be 51 and change with restructuring it this year. And so we talked about Josh Allen, who was 51 and change. Deshaun Watson, 54.9. But when I mentioned Herbert and Burrow and Lamar and Jalen Hurts, those 4 players specifically, because this is the offseason they signed that contract. And Patrick Mahomes' contract, when he signed his big deal, first year cap hit 5.4, second year 7.4, last year, this past season, 35.8. Josh Allen, his contract, he signs the big deal, cap hit 10.2, 16.4, next year 40. That third year is when it kicks in. So if we look at that and we say Herbert and Burrow and Hurts and Lamar signing contracts this year, that would mean 2023 cheaper, 2024 a little more expensive, 2025 here is the balloon payment. So that's why I'm looking at 2025, because it will be closer to apples rather than, well, your apples and oranges. Mahomes is 51 and Justin Herbert, he's signing a new deal. He might only be 13 or 14. Well, if he's 13 or $14 million in 25, he's going to be 60 in 2026.
And that's just kind of how it works. That's pretty standard operating procedure, right? That's not some crazy weird gymnastics.
Yeah. So you're going to have Hurts and Lamar and Burrow and Herbert that will have cheaper deals against the cap the next couple of years, comparatively speaking to what Mahomes is going to cost in, 40 some odd and, and 49 and 50 and et cetera, et cetera. But then in 2025, everybody's going to be playing on essentially an even level playing field on what their contracts are going to be for their quarterbacks moving forward. Now, Trevor Lawrence would have one more year. Mm-hmm. Trevor Lawrence's big deal would then kick in 26. Whoever else, like you talked about, Bryce Young, whoever else, be rookie deals, and we'll see what happens moving forward. But not restructuring Mahomes last year and trading Tyreek Hill last year and taking advantage of the resources you had in the draft by McDuffie looking like he's going to be a pretty damn good cornerback, by Karlaftis looking like he's going to be a pretty serviceable defensive end, and it's not going to be, oh, that guy sucks. Okay, that's going to be a guy there. No, he's pretty good. He's pretty good. Is he Von Miller? No, but you're not getting Von Miller at number 30. Mm-hmm. That Jalen Watson looks like it's a pretty serviceable 7th-round draft pick. Mm-hmm. And we'll see what Joshua Williams looks like. Brian Cook moving into Juan Thornhill's spot, which saves you the money that you would have to pay Juan Thornhill in the offseason to keep him around.
Or still pay Juan Thornhill and have 3. Or Craig Stout surprised me on this show last week, saying maybe you improve a safety.
Yeah.
I don't know.
But if you say Brian Cook slides into that safety spot for Juan Thornhill, yeah, you do have the option then of paying Juan Thornhill.
You keep your options open.
Right. But if
you have a non-disastrous option.
If Brian Cook was a disaster, right? If Brian Cook was like, good God, he's nowhere to be found. He is. Oh, he's not good. This was a mistake.
Hey, that's one reason that Orlando Brown Jr. getting franchise tagged is at least as a foregone conclusion, because you don't want to have disasters that show up. You cannot have a sinkhole.
Right. And Brian Cook was not that.
Absolutely.
And people in the Chiefs talked about, boy, how good he got as the season went on, and reliable, and he's a sponge. And he was drafted to then replace Juan Thornhill. Maybe they then keep Juan Thornhill. But it gives you the flexibility of saying, Brian, you're taking that spot. Juan, it's been a fun 4 years, man. You got a couple of rings. You played in the Super Bowl as well, so that's good. Played in a couple Super Bowls, but you got a ring in which you played in, not just watching in the 2019 Super Bowl when you had the torn ACL. So great job. Good second-round pick by the Chiefs. They got the value out of Juan Thornhill those 4 years. You move on to a next second-round draft pick in Brian Cook because you were able to hit on that particular pick. Because Nick Bolton and Willie Gay seem like linebackers that are pretty good, that you don't have to then go, good God, there's just a full-on position that is missing. And we spent 2 second-round draft picks on these guys, and they are not good. The Chiefs in the mid-2000s were chasing defensive tackle and defensive line like a dog chasing its tail. Mm-hmm. Let's spend a first-round draft pick on it. Oh, missed. Well, now we still got to go and spend another draft pick on it because we missed the last time. Oh, missed again. Well, if you hit it right the first time with Ryan Sims, you don't have to then go and double down and triple down and find that you can use that draft pick somewhere else. And because it looks like they got Trent McDuffie right, they don't have to examine and go, maybe Peter King is right. Maybe they do have to trade for Jalen Ramsey.
Right.
Maybe they do have to go and pay this cornerback out here that's a free agent, a lot of money. Maybe they do have to trade up in the draft to go and get a cornerback and get it right this time. And boy, you are really risking, if you get it wrong this time, you traded up to get McDuffie. Now you're using another selection on a cornerback that in a high. No, you got it right.
Right.
It looks like. So it then gives you more flexibility this offseason. You need to keep getting it right. But last offseason was so significant that it has given the Chiefs so many options this offseason of saying, well, yeah, they can sign Chris Jones long-term, and they can sign Orlando Brown long-term. They could also trade both of them. They could trade a draft pick for another player to come in. They can go and acquire a big-name wide receiver if they want to. They'll have to figure that out in 24 and 25 and 26, but they are not in a position to where it is this guy or that guy, and you can't have them both. They can. They can have their cake and eat it too, and not be in a position to where they are screwed next year and in 2025.
Car stuff has always kind of stressed me out. I don't like car stuff. I'm not really a car guy.
Derek or David?
I prefer Derek between those two. But even just the cars with the one R. Where I, what was your first car, Jason?
It was a 94 Honda Accord.
You're a big Honda Accord guy.
Apparently. I didn't know it at the time, but apparently.
They're great cars. They stick around forever, it seems, and so it makes it easy to buy. My first car was a 1998 Plymouth Neon. I red two-door. It was great, but also at some point, things start happening to a car that's about as old as you are. And so I eventually... had that one to where I sold that car back for $100 because it had two flat tires. The hole had burnt through the coolant tank. Struts were broken. I mean,
it's a first car.
I got every mile out of that sucker. I remember it fondly. And then I got a used car for, I think it was $3,000, my second car there, right? Drove that sucker until the wheels fell off. And then it was with my most recent car that I kind of had that conversation of, okay, look, I don't have to just get, and I got, my second car, there are stories about what I did to keep that thing moving, and it kept moving, to its credit. But around getting my third car, I had that sort of little bit of math of, okay, I have a little more money now than I did when I was working on these two cars, and what would be worth spending? Is it worth the warranty stuff? What would it be worth cashing in on here for the money that I have now? How am I going to pay for this? Let me evaluate my own salary cap down the line a little bit. Is this going to be worth it to not always be worrying that my car's about to break down in the middle of an intersection? Now, I still don't like spending large amounts of money on anything ever. It stresses me out, not my favorite thing in the world. And I'm really about, responsible spending still. That little voice in my head is still there. I would not want to, as we've started saying, pay for a car twice. As the analogy begins to come through the mist, everyone.
Okay, we got there.
But I through that process eventually had to figure out, when is it worth paying a little more for a better product that's going to give me a better return for a longer period of time? If all I'm ever doing is buying the $2,000 car from the lot down the corner, eventually I'm paying more for all of those mistakes than I would have been if I would have just made one good decision when I did. Mm-hmm. I think paying Chris Jones is one good decision. That is not me saying, I'm getting a garage, and I'm filling that sucker up with the fastest things I can find.
I'm going to go from driving this car that's going to break down to now my garage looks like Jay Leno.
Exactly. I am not advocating for that, but I'm saying, hey, you know what? Over these few years, last year I got an extra year out of that car, my second car, than I probably should have. The Chiefs accomplished more this season than they should have by all the metrics entering this year. This is an okay time to go ahead and say you didn't buy that car new a year ago. You didn't pay Tyreek Hill that premium. So let's go ahead and pay Chris Jones now, because everything else around that. Now I know I'm spending little bits of money here and there on house things. If you want to go out and get dinner and go ahead and spend a little luxury pick trading up to go get a fancy new cornerback, hell yeah, man, make it happen. But it doesn't always have to be these outrageous extremes of I am stealing my car out of a junk lot, or I am go ahead and I'm hitting the push to start on my new Ferrari. Like, there is some space in there, because the Chiefs have made good investments now, and their finances look the best they've looked in years right now. Make smart decisions, but it's not always put your money underneath your mattress.
And if you're like me, you can be the Saints or the Falcons, to where you thought you were in a position to buy a G8 GT, black on black on black, and feel really cool driving that around for a while until, like, you know, you need to buy a house and you get a wife and you need to be a grown-up and you're upside down on that. And so you make some financial decisions that you have to have. It's a tough decision. You got to take your medicine, and you drive around an 04 Honda Accord for like 7-8 years. Whereas
You're the Packers.
Had I made a
You're
different
just the Packers.
Had I made a different decision then, I might be driving the Chris Jones around instead of, you know what? We got to get rid of everybody.
You've gotten point A to point B. You know, you've done some winning. You've got right now. Is this going to be the year you move on from this quarterback or not? I don't know.
We'll find out.
Did you draft Jordan Love? Is one of your kids Jordan Love? I'll work on the analogy in the break.
No, but I do love my kids.
So I guess there's maybe a little bit too much familial love there for you to be the Packers, but
yeah, that's true. I'm in my son's life, so it is a little different than Aaron Rodgers. We'll take a timeout. We'll come back. More Zone next.
Want to see more of The Zone? Watch the show live on the Sports Radio 810 WHB Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, and Twitch. You're in the zone with Jason Anderson.
It's kind of like last night, the Matt Moore, not Matt Mahore, which would be a different quarterback.
On Sports Radio 810 WHB.
All right, we'll continue right here on Sports Radio 810 WHB. Jason Anderson, Josh Brisco, and Beards. Mick Shaffer, KSHB 41 Sports Director, will join us in the 1 o'clock hour. Learn Funniest Best coming our way. It's at the 101 Awards on Saturday, and we started the show talking about how cool it was that Jalen Hurts still showed up. And I know it sounds like, well, he was given an award. Why wouldn't he show up? Well, you don't necessarily. I mean, Nick Bosa didn't show up. I don't know what his excuse was. Mahomes was a groomsman in a wedding, so that seems like a legitimate excuse that the wedding was that night. It's like, hey, can I fly in after the 101 Awards thing? That'd be great. Turns out the wedding was probably scheduled beforehand, before the 101 Awards. So Mahomes, I don't know why Nick Bosa wasn't there. Who knows? But point being, Jalen Hurts could have found something to do to not fly to Kansas City, a couple of weeks after losing in the Super Bowl to the Chiefs, and to accept that award. So it was very cool that he was there. And what he said when accepting the award of this is important, when you work and you get named and recognized like this, it's important to be there to do those things. So got a chance to talk with Jalen Hurts after the press conference was over. And does this have my opening question, or is it the whole thing? It's just the whole thing. So we started off just like, hey, congrats, man. That's cool.
I actually cut out the little congrats, and it starts with the beginning of your official first question.
Oh, very good.
This is perfectly produced for radio.
Love it. Here it is. Take a listen, everybody.
Have you had time since the Super Bowl to sort of let it all sink in of what this last 12 months have been like for you?
I think I think it's been a great ride. I think there's a ton of value to take away from what we've been able to accomplish as a team. And, you look at just the continuous steps that we've been able to take, and it's definitely a foundation that we're trying to lay for ourselves, a standard, if you will, and it's a standard that we only want to rise. So
I know that the team part of it, you talk about that and the success there, but do you think of the last year and where you're at now as someone who is sitting in this position and played the way you did in the Super Bowl as sort of like, an accomplishment? Like, this is what I've been telling you guys, like doubting has been there for a while for you, and you finally get an opportunity to say, see?
Well, I've never really cared for the opinions of someone else. I've always stayed true to myself and stayed true to what I believe. And I love the game. I love the process of the game. I love doing the things that no one sees. I love doing the things that no one sees. No one sees the work. No one sees the clicker. Being pressed, watching the tape. No one sees all of those things, and those are the reasons why I play this game, because of the process of the game, and then obviously the fellowship I'm able to have with my teammates. But I've always said I never put a limit on myself. I never put a limit on what I can do. So I don't do it. I ain't doing it for no one else.
Is it tough to keep that confidence of that it's going to work out for you if people are doubting you? I know that you don't worry about other people's, but personally for you to try to get the opportunity and finally to do that, does ever?
I think all of that is irrelevant. I think I've always maintained the same type of approach I've had. I've always had the same foundation, and I've always been able to lean on that foundation with my father, my mother, my siblings, my loved ones, and the people who mean most to me, and the way I was raised. So.
What was it like on that stage against Patrick Mahomes in the Super Bowl with those teams going back and forth, and just to be in that game?
Yeah, like I said, we worked really hard to get there. We obviously came up short, but it was an experience. It was a teachable moment. It was a formative experience for me and the rest of the team, and it's something that we'll definitely all learn from.
Have you gotten satisfaction from all of the people telling you that they have won their fantasy football leagues because of you?
I'm a pretty hard guy to satisfy, but yeah.
But have you heard that a lot about the fantasy?
I hear it.
Well, you were on my fantasy team too, so
I appreciate that.
Yes, and I appreciate you.
Yeah, I appreciate that.
I did want to say my son, who's 7, big fan. I told him, he always wonders who I'm interviewing, and I said, well, I get to talk to Jalen Hurts, the Eagles quarterback. He goes, really?
Yeah.
Tell him I think he played a really good game. So
tell him I said thank you.
My son said you had a really good game. Is it odd at all being here in Kansas City now with just a few weeks after that?
It's ironic for sure, but it's something that we work really hard for. I'm able to accept this award, and it takes a lot of hard work. It's a steep price you pay to be in positions and being able to experience things like this. But
oh yeah,
oh yeah,
and the regular season too.
I might have to take you up on that. Thank you.
No, it's the last one for you is, as you've got the patent, the copyright that's there.
Yeah.
Is that something that you had, or did you just say it there in the press conference about you've always had a purpose before the opinion?
Yeah, sometimes stuff. I'm often a person where I'm reflecting. I like to kind of be in tune with myself, be in tune with what I'm feeling. And maybe long ago I thought about that and it came out, but yeah, it's a way to, inspire the kids. That's why they're watching everything that we do, everything that we say, everything that's going on. So I know it's a steep price you pay to have that platform, to win, to be a leader, and also a huge responsibility to be a role model in this world we live in right now. But that's something that I embrace. So everything that I do is for the next one watching.
So he's got the copyright of I had a purpose before people had an opinion. And he said that at one of the 1,000 press conferences that you have media availability leading up to the Super Bowl. And in the middle of this long answer that he gave that particular day, and he was talking about that and said, I've had a purpose before anyone had an opinion, and then looked around and said, you guys like that, don't you? And then continued his answer. He's now copyrighted that, and there will be T-shirts and things like that for Jalen Hurts. And, just wondering, is that something that just came out at the time? Or it kind of sounded like he's like, well, I've always sort of been introspective that way. It didn't sound like it was he had that on his mirror when he would wake up in the morning on a little a Post-it note, or, he already had T-shirts made of that it sort of just came out while he was talking about the doubting that's gone on, that this guy's in a position now to get a massive contract this offseason, where a year ago people were expecting the Eagles to move on from and the Eagles organization was wondering if they were going to find a different quarterback and could they build a team around Jalen Hurts. And there was a big stamped exclamation point answer to that with Jalen Hurts this year.
The other thing that just comes throughout that conversation you had with him there, it goes to the quip from that presser that's now a trademark and will, I'm sure, be a very popularly selling shirt in Philadelphia, as it should be. Guess. It's a great line. Yeah. But there's something really interesting to, and maybe even kind of unmodern, to the gravitas that it feels like he brings to maybe everything, but particularly just to a young NFL quarterback, which is weird because it's a compliment, but it's not an insult to anyone who doesn't go about it that way. I like a dude who's having, fun being the face of the league, and Mahomes does a little bit of both, right? You see fun Mahomes or petty Mahomes or whatever, and then you see the reflective answers that he gives when he is asked about, being the face of the league or being one of the two black quarterbacks facing off in a Super Bowl against each other for the first time. Mahomes is taking on that mantle again. This isn't about him at all. It's just very specifically that Jalen Hurts has a seriousness to all of what he seems to say and do, and it is very frequently accentuated by him just explicitly saying, and we're doing it because the kids are watching. We're doing it because the next ones are always have their eyes on you. And I'm curious. I'm sure there have been stories done about it, but I'm curious as to where that sort of compass was planted in him that way, and why that is his particular attitude while being one of the guys at the top of the sports world. Where again, guys like Mahomes and I'm sure other places outside of Kansas City, I just don't pay as close of attention. Super involved in the communities and different ways of representing the team and the league and the organizations and all of that. But Hurts is just, it kind of stands out in its stoicness in a way, but not rude. He's not being a jerk about it, He's not, I'm the quarterback. I'm a statue of a quarterback who you can look up at and admire, but like he very much feels the eyes of people on him. I just find that really interesting.
He's a guy that obviously it's going to be very easy to root for with Jalen Hurts, it seems like. And him not being the AFC helps.
Yeah, for sure.
I will say that.
Sure.
They will face off against the Eagles and Jalen Hurts next year, and then unless they see him in the Super Bowl, it'll be the last time for, 4 years until they see Jalen Hurts again. But I find it interesting this year where Jalen Hurts finished second in the MVP and was the betting favorite until he hurt his shoulder to win the MVP. And then has a Super Bowl in which he has 300 yards passing and a touchdown and no interceptions, and then rushes for 70 yards and 3 touchdowns in that game. Does have the mistake of the fumble that resulted in 6 for the Chiefs. But he finishes this postseason run this year in the 3 games with almost 600 yards passing, 3 touchdowns, no interceptions, and 143 yards rushing and 5 touchdowns. So he's got 8 touchdowns in the 3 games, including one of the best Super Bowl performances we've seen. To the point that, if Jerick McKinnon scores the touchdown before Kadarius Toney, and if whoever else they got the handoff before the pass to Sky Moore, and Mahomes has 1 touchdown pass to Travis Kelce, I mean, you can make an argument that, hey, Jalen Hurts is the MVP even in a losing effort. I mean, hell, you can make that argument anyway, even with the 3 touchdown passes for Mahomes. But when you get Mahomes having 3 touchdown passes, it's a little more difficult to then say, well, you can't really pass that up when it's Patrick Mahomes. But there's been such a quickness to who's the Peyton to Mahomes Brady or the Brady Manning. It's been, it's Lamar Jackson because he was the MVP the next year. Then it was, Josh Allen is the next guy to challenge Patrick Mahomes. And Justin Herbert is the next guy to challenge Patrick Mahomes. And Joe Burrow is the next guy to challenge Patrick Mahomes. And I haven't heard the Jalen Hurts conversation. Maybe it's because it's just the AFC and people are talking about Brady and Manning. But if we're saying who's the second best quarterback in the NFL, there's been that conversation of Lamar and Josh Allen and Justin Herbert and Joe Burrow and who you taking. Maybe it's because it's only 1 year, but no conversation about, Jalen Hurts. And I say maybe because it's only been 1 year, but Joe Burrow last year was only 1 year. And before the Chiefs lost to the Bengals in Cincinnati last year in the 21 season, there was already the Burrow and Mahomes. Is Burrow the guy to challenge Mahomes? This game where they're going to face off against each other. And I had a tweet that did not age well.
Oh, boy.
That Mahomes showed up to that game, and I remember what he was wearing. It was all black. And I said, Mahomes is showing up to the funeral of Joe Burrow and Patrick Mahomes conversation. It didn't age well because Burrow was pretty good that day.
It felt like kind of a funeral, yeah.
And the Bengals ended up winning. And a lot of people had fun. Yeah, a lot of people had fun with that tweet I had that day.
This is the solution.
But that was in the middle of Joe Burrow's first year when he was having a 38 touchdown season and 15 interceptions. So this was 1 year for Hurts that had the 22 touchdowns, 6 interceptions, the 800 yards rushing and 13 more touchdowns, and had the 4 touchdowns in the Super Bowl. But I haven't heard the Jalen Hurts is the second best quarterback in the NFL, where it felt like we had that quickly with Josh Allen, a little bit with Justin Herbert, but not a lot. But a lot of that with Burrow after the Super Bowl last year, in which he didn't even really play all that well in the Super Bowl.
Here's a whole can of worms that we got to break pretty soon, so I'm not going to get the lid all the way off of it. But a lot of quarterbacking analysis goes back to what people think a quarterback should look like. And Joe Burrow checks a lot of those boxes. And I might be talking about play style, and I might be talking about other things. But I'm definitely at least talking about play style, and maybe some other places where Joe Burrow checks that box. We're like, that dude looks like he is a quarterback out of Central Casting, which should just like make you just check your biases a little bit as to what a quarterback looks like. It should look like and all of that. But yeah, it is a rotating just Mahomes versus whoever. Now, the funniest and most important part of that is that it's never, at no point has it reasonably been, who would you take, Joe Burrow or Justin Herbert? Because everyone properly at this point goes, sorry, did you leave Mahomes off this on purpose, or did somebody make an accident in the production truck? Like, what happened here? It's always Mahomes versus the next guy. Yeah. And yeah, Hurts more deserves to be in that conversation than a number of guys we've already talked about. And
certainly Justin Herbert.
And certainly, yeah, absolutely. And I love Justin Herbert. Josh Allen has not won all that much, and I think that Josh Allen is tremendous, and wins aren't a quarterback stat. But in the way that the narratives go, winning typically matters, and it really hasn't for Herbert. And on the inverse, it hasn't really mattered for Hurts either, which it probably should.
Well, Hurts this year, his quarterback rating was better than any of Justin Herbert's quarterback ratings in his career. So Herbert's career high quarterback rating is 98.3. Hurts this year was 101.5. QBR, Justin Herbert's career high is 65.6. Hurts this year was 66.3. So if we're just talking about quarterbacking, besides the 760 yards and 13 touchdowns rushing this year, Burrow had a phenomenal season last year. 108 quarterback rating. But because you throw in the running ability with the QBR, Burrow's QBR, his career high is 58.7, and Hurts this year was 66.7. But Josh Allen's been pretty damn good.
Yes.
Because Josh Allen's career quarterback rating high is 107.7, and the QBR, because you throw in rushing, is 76.6. But he's made an AFC Championship game once and played in a couple divisional rounds. Has not played in a Super Bowl yet. And he did finish second in MVP voting. Right? Didn't Josh Allen get a first-place vote?
I think he
Wasn't
did.
it tied with Mahomes or whatever with Aaron Rodgers? So they both got like a first-place vote or whatever. So technically finishing second in an MVP voting like Jalen Hurts. I'm not arguing that, Josh Allen shouldn't be up there. No, what I'm saying is we were quick with so many other quarterbacks that I think Jalen Hurts has as much, if not more, than some of these other guys we've talked about to be put in the conversation of Patrick Mahomes and then who?
No MVP votes for Allen in 2021-22. He was tied for third or finished third this year.
Okay. So I thought he got one, but doesn't matter. So we'll see what happens moving forward. Hurts, if he does it again, certainly will be in that conversation. And maybe we're just looking at specifically people talking about AFC, and that's why, they weren't really discussing him. But after that Super Bowl performance, it's hard to deny how good he is and what he was able to do and what he can do moving forward. And they're going to have to pay him as well. So they are going to do everything they can in Philly to make sure they continue to build around him because they're going to pay him a lot of money. We'll take a timeout. We'll come back. More Zone next.
Follow the show on Twitter at J810Anderson, at JB Brisco, at Beards McFly, and at Sports Radio 810. The Zone with Jason Anderson.
Yeah, I think I'm just going to try to progressively make this show a little more unlistenable every day, which is a pretty tall task.
Weekdays from 10 to 2 on Sports Radio 810 WHB.
All right, that wraps up this noon hour today. We'll talk with Mick Shaffer, KSHB 41 Sports Director, in the next hour. Get some Learn Funniest Best coming your way.
Got to be louder, Mick. I don't think they hear you through the glass.
They can't hear you. Yell! Oh, he said he only works in the 1 o'clock hour. It's not 1 o'clock yet. He walked in and immediately walked right back out. Just turned right back around. I like doing the Sunday sound off because the next day when we have Mick in, I can just flip every single question he asked me right back on him. Mick, what do you think about this? You know, I was thinking about this question last night. Completely on my own, independent of anything else. It's a really good question that I came up with on my own. What do you think about this, Mick? You're so stupid. You're the dumbest thing ever. I hope nobody agreed with you last night when people were asked that. I'm not sure.
Hey, Mick, Jason says you're allowed in here in about 90 seconds. Sorry he's so territorial.
Hour and 2 minutes you can come in.
The wait. The Zone with Jason Anderson.
Final hour on a Wednesday, hump day edition of the show. Speaking of that, Mick Shaffer joins us, KSHB 41 sports director. Hey, guy. Huh? How you doing?
Humping away.
Yeah.
Weekdays from 10 to 2 on Sports Radio 810 WHB.
All right, we continue right here on Sports Radio 810 WHB. Jason Anderson with you, Josh Brisco, Beards. Mick Shaffer, KSHB 41 sports director, joining us here in the zone. Mick, what's up, brother? How are you?
What's up, brother? What's up, brothers?
Oh, hey, brother.
Hey,
and
brother.
let me tell you this,
Hello, brother.
Oh, yeah. This will be a fun couple of weeks of local
good?
college basketball. And then
Starting
we'll see,
up already.
I mean, we'll see what the NCAA tournament looks like, but these last two games for the three local schools heading into the conference tournaments next week should be a whole lot of fun. We got Combine this week as well. Draft season is approaching very quickly.
SEC Women's Tournament is this week. The MIAA Tournament, which is something that I know that is always on your radar.
Mm-hmm.
It's a passion project of mine. I enjoy it. We usually air a lot of the highlights of those local teams in it, whether it's Northwest, Washburn, Emporia State.
Typically Northwest, but whatever. I mean, just if you're looking at most of the winning.
They've turned into more of a Duke than a Alabama football, Duke basketball program more than a Alabama football.
It's crazy. Like they're kind of both, but they're just so dominant on the basketball
It's amazing.
side.
Do you have any plans for the NAIA tournament?
Yeah.
I'm looking to see where Mid-America is currently
That's
ranking. I got to figure
week,
out
correct?
if I'm yes. Yeah, we got March 13th round
so that's
one here.
Gonna be
Looks
at the
like.
Muni next week.
Yeah.
MIAA's at the Muni this week.
You just want to go tailgate that with me?
So listen, at Metro Sports back in the day, we used to air all 31 of those games, and so like on Thursday and Friday, it's maybe Wednesday and Thursday. It's like a 6-day tournament. It would be like 8 straight games that we would put on television, and we did like a couple documentaries around it, and it was pretty cool getting to know some of those programs from around. And I played NAIA basketball, so another passion of mine.
Yeah, it's basketball being a passion.
All the basketball that you guys have never heard of nor want to.
Well, no,
right? I'm an authority on.
One of my first paying gigs out of college that was actually on the radio was, it was just on the internet, but it was play-by-play at the NAIA tournament, and there were like 6 games that day, and they just sat me down, and all of the games were on the internet, and it was just internet broadcast, and they gave me the rosters of the two teams, and
No
you were by
background?
yourself, and go. And just
bet
game
you
after
did okay.
You know what? They gave me $50 per game, and for someone
go.
that was making no money, I enjoyed the $300 on a day's work. Yeah, it was more than no money. It was probably
you calling Olivet Nazarene and Georgetown.
I don't remember. It was like 20
Vera
years
College
ago. It was like 20 years ago. I just don't remember.
USAO and Houston Baptist.
I know I wasn't really all that good. And then luckily, like every media timeout, they just went to break and we didn't have to do anything. And then halftime didn't have to do anything. Between games didn't have to do anything. It's just when there was action, you're calling the play-by-play. Okay, great. I can do that. Basketball, baseball might be a little more difficult. If you don't know anything about the teams, and then you got to fill all that time. Basketball, a lot of action.
Basketball's the easiest.
I think I can figure this out.
Football's harder, but not far behind. Baseball, man, you better know. You better have grown up with like the entire roster of both teams.
Baseball is so much more. It's becoming sports talk radio around a game.
This is what I would like to do a little baseball play-by-play, as long as no one who's listening really cares about the game that much.
Yeah, that's right.
I would go back. Listen, MNU, you know where to find me. You want me to come back and do a baseball game? We'll stream it. I would do that as long as I can just,
I think
have carte blanche for the stories we tell.
I think football is the perfect one because there's action, and then there's time to assess what's going on.
If you have
incorporate strategy.
You have an analyst, right? And so you have that time before they break the huddle, then give it back to the play-by-play guy. Basketball is a little faster, especially with some teams that look to push.
Yeah.
To where a lot of times it's the bucket goes in, then the analyst takes over till half court of the next possession, and then usually play-by-play takes back over.
The teams that have the chemistry of play-by-play color analysts in basketball, it's so difficult to get that down because you might have like 7
stop.
Stop. Nope. You're done. You might have 7 seconds to get your thoughts in there before I mean, it's just those that can work together and just know how each other is thinking.
It's a delicate dance.
Absolutely,
it's a ballet.
Yes, it's fun though. It's all action when that's happening.
Of all the of all the ways you can do media, play-by-play is the most fun for me. I'm just not really good at it. I'm worse at radio than I am play-by-play.
They've got to somebody out there has to be hearing this right now and think, can we get the Zone to do a game for us? The answer is I think yes, because I don't really want to do play-by-play necessarily, but do a little radio analyst role. I've enjoyed doing that a couple times.
I did a lot at Metro Sports for high school, and then I did when we had the KU contract. Did a lot of KU women's games.
We could trade off.
And then did a lot of Valley football, and that was fun.
My dream was to do football play-by-play, and that's at college doing.
I'd like to do some radio analysis for football games. Somebody get me in, book me and Jason. We'll come. We will ruin it, but we'll try. We'll actually try to do our best.
Yep. The highlight tape that I made in college to send out was all play-by-play, and then like one little 3-minute track of sports radio.
Yeah,
that was it. It was all. I was going to do play-by-play football. And then if he could do, like, Kevin Kugler's got a show in Omaha, that he does. He hosts a radio show. But really, he's play-by-play.
Got one interview question?
Well done.
Thank you.
Well done. And that's what I moved to Wyoming for, was to do play-by-play of football.
I would do way too much.
Then I fell back on this sports radio gig that just, imagine how good I was at football play-by-play if I'm this bad at sports radio.
I would do way too much prep work beforehand. And I mean, I get done and with my boards, and I'm like, I didn't need to know that the backup right guard was on a USSSA AAA, World Series team when he was 9. I didn't.
But it's there in case.
There in case.
You might need that.
And now it's a lot easier, I would think, in that pretty much every game, if you're doing college basketball at any sort of higher level, every game out there you can go back and watch, and that's the biggest thing. Just go back and watch these games, know what has happened in the games. I feel like that's the kind of the knowledge well that you need to dive down into the most, and then just learn. Like, I would go to these Valley games, and I didn't know. Okay, number 4's right receiver. Okay, he's really short. I would know it, but in pregame, I would see these guys for the first time.
Get the body type.
Yeah, know the body types. Know where they usually line up. To where it's like, that's a catch for 19 yards for Missouri State. They're down inside Illinois State territory. Joe Johnson had that as I'm looking down to find out who number 4 is.
I have way more annoyance listening to other sports radio, like football play-by-play or basketball play-by-play, than I do listening to other sports radio, like sports radio talk show. Like the play-by-play can just annoy me to no extent. Like if I'm listening to a national guy and it's like 3rd down and 6 at like the 25-yard line, and it's like handoff up the middle, skips a tackle, moves ahead, and he is brought down. It's going to be a gain of 7.
Yeah.
It was 3rd and 6, man. Like, I need to know, is he close to throw over the middle? It's knocked away. It's just like, number 15 makes the tackle 15 yards down the field. Well, thank you. You finally got to it. Like, I've heard some guys that are like, they are breaking down and play-by-play, like, very intricate details of the tackle, but I don't know the yard line or where it's at, or if they've picked up 10 or 15 yards. It's just brought down by number 25. And this is 5th tackle on the game. It's going to bring up 1st and 10 after the 25-yard gain. What? Man.
I'm locked in on this one. I'm like a dog with a bone. I'm not getting taken off of this one track mind I'm on. If you're not so far down with the idea of the Zone does a football game, I want you to go ahead and hear in your mind the phrase. Throw it now down to our sideline reporter, Beards McFly, with the latest. Beards?
Well, everybody seems like they're doing okay out there.
Thanks, Beards.
First down and 10. Teams have fun.
Like
3 minutes here to go in the first quarter.
NAIA, some high school. I'll come to a Pee Wee game. I don't really, but like I feel like we could really just blow up a smaller time game.
You got Friday night football on this station.
Well, but there are people who are good at that who do it already.
Tim Spurl.
Yeah. So we need a non-adult, non-professional.
Hey, Mark, step out of the booth. Yeah. Brisco wants to
step in. I don't want to subject anyone who's good at their job to that.
Bo Richter, slide aside so Brisco can have a little fun on the side for him.
No, that's why I'm trying to keep our sights appropriately leveled because I wanted to. I'm telling you, I feel like some NAIA football could use a little extra spark to it.
You know,
a little regular season.
I'm good with it.
Brockmeyer, put it on the map.
A little Brockmeyer situation. It could be me and Beards and Denny Matthews. Weirdly enough, but it's actually Denny Matthews doing football.
Patrick Mahomes in the shotgun.
Well, we're doing a Chiefs game now, huh?
Takes the snap, rolls right, throws, finds Juju. Smith-Schuster. That's a mouthful. Down the sideline and knocked out of bounds. Gain of 35.
Telling you.
First down for the Chiefs.
This is a good bit.
Throws it down the field and caught by McCole Hardman. Touchdown. And gone, McCole.
Somebody DM me. We'll figure this out.
Mike Garofolo tweets out that Boise State safety, J.L. Skinner. I bring this up because Craig Stout said that safety might be a position or group that people aren't thinking about that the Chiefs may invest some resources in, even in the draft. Projected second/third round draft pick out of Boise State. J.L. Skinner, he was getting ready to head to the combine, tore his pec in training.
It's like a year injury.
So he will be interviewing with teams this week. Can't do any drills. Surgery is going to be performed next week. My brother DM'd me and said, sounds like a Veach 6th round draft pick.
Yeah, seriously.
I said, yeah, that does sound like a Veach 6th round draft pick. And you know what? The Chiefs are in a position to where they can go that route if need be. That, well, this guy was going to be a 2nd round draft pick safety, but he tore his pec, and he's probably going to have to take a redshirt year. So they took him in the 6th round. Not that was Trey Smith. We talked about that on Friday. That was a little bit different when Trey Smith said he was misdiagnosed, but just pass that along that, it's starting to be draft season. Combine coming up this week. Some teams going, some teams not going and sending coaches. Combine ultimately really about the interviews and the health reports and everything like that there this weekend in Indianapolis. So we'll be watching the on-field workout start on Thursday.
Yeah. I think Veach and Andy are talking tomorrow. Is that right?
Tomorrow.
I've also heard that. Yep.
Tomorrow they'll be there, and we'll hear from Veach and Andy Reid. As it is, full in off-season mode and draft season and all of that stuff. So I want to hear from Isaiah Pacheco, because this time a year ago, the Chiefs and Brett Veach said, there's going to be there's going to be a running back late in the draft that's going to be a 1,000-yard rusher. Okay, we'll find one. Yeah, prove it.
He got close, right?
Prove it. He would have been if he started.
Including postseason, he actually did clear 1,000.
See, there you go. Veach was right. There was a running back that was drafted in the 7th round or later that picked up 1,000 yards rushing this year, and that was Isaiah Pacheco. Here he is at the 101 Awards with Stephen St. John, and I believe the conversation starts with Stephen talking about how much fun Pacheco has had so far, and then he references the game at Rutgers basketball that Pacheco went back for, and then decided when he was shown on the big board that he was also going to continue dancing, because that's what Pacheco was doing. So here's Stephen St. John starting that conversation about Pacheco returning to the game there at Rutgers, being now big man on campus.
It's always a sold-out stadium when we get in that basketball arena, and for me to go back and on a sold-out night, Thursday night basketball game versus Michigan at home, and for me to show my face and show my support for the basketball team, and not only that, being able to see some of my ex-teammates from our football team in the stands, and that right there, it brought a lot of joy to me and support that I had for back there at Rutgers.
Are you the best dancer in the locker room? Because it appears you're the guy that always ends up being the guy that everyone gets around. So you got the best moves in the locker room?
At Rutgers?
Rutgers or Kansas City?
Nah, Rutgers, we got some dances in the Rutgers locker room.
But not so much KC?
Nah, not so much KC. We don't really dance as much. When we win, we gonna dance though. But mostly during the week, we locked in.
Clark Hunt mentioned this. What people were saying about you in training camp, right? But you were a 7th round pick. You make the team. Then you had to become the starter. Then you're one of the stars in the Super Bowl. When you look back at this, that doesn't happen. So do you have to pinch yourself? Like, when you think about all that stuff, what goes through your mind?
It's just finally, getting something that you deserve, what you worked hard for your whole life, and happening so fast. But being able to cherish those moments moments with my family and being able to bring them down to the Super Bowl is something that I will always cherish forever. And, you know, you never know when we'll get back there. So for me to have done that and instead of, you know, giving away my tickets or something to whoever, then I wanted my family there because, you know, you never know we're going to get back there again.
So how would you describe your running style? People have called you a very angry runner. I've heard some teammates call you Pop because you pop back up after every hit. So how would you describe the way you run the football?
Vicious, man. Yeah, that's it right there, man. Vicious, man.
So what are your plans for the rest of the would you call him a vicious runner? How would you describe him, Chris?
Vicious. You said it.
Okay, is he the best dancer in the locker room now? It seems like he's got that what would you say?
He's definitely up there. I give it to him. He got the hips. He got the movement.
Who's his top competition? Are you in the running?
No. I don't dance. Probably Colin Sanders, Frank Clark. We got a couple dancers on the team, but he's definitely up there.
Okay, Frank Clark.
Yes, sir.
Congratulations.
Thank you so much. Appreciate it.
Colin Sanders.
I love that. Vicious. Chris, would you call him vicious? He's a vicious runner, yes. Pacheco's living his best life right now, and I love that for him for a number of reasons. But, you know, he was a guy that when he was drafted said, my job is to take a grown man's job. Like, I'm going to go into camp and take a grown man's job. And he took a grown man's job and then got the starting job in the Super Bowl and was really good and is getting recognized with the Mackley Hill Award, and the parade was showered with love, returning to Rutgers, and everybody's chanting his name, and which is awesome. And I think it also helped that he wore the Rutgers sweater.
I know,
in the
he wore the
parade
Rutgers shirt in the parade. Everybody else is wearing the Chiefs gear.
That's right, yeah.
Or the specialty shirts they made just for the parade, the zero sacks. He's involved in that. He's in pass pro. He could have worn that.
He's showing how proud he is of the jersey roots that he has. And also the fact that the guys in the NFL went to Rutgers, which is you're playing running back at Rutgers. You're a damn fine football player, you know. And
Big Ten. I think of Rutgers. I think of Big Ten.
That's exactly
and nothing
right.
else.
But then both his brother and sister were both murdered when he was in his mid-teens. And then to get to the Super Bowl and experience that with his family, as he said, to have his family there, and probably how emotional that night was, that you're at the top of your career, 1 year into your career, that what you've done to fight to that spot. And now it's like, this is not how it's supposed to be in the NFL. You know that, right? Like, you're not going to be, your rookie year, 1,000 yards, and then, you win a Super Bowl. Like, it's not going to be every single year. But it's been an awesome year for him, and he seems like a really good dude and one hell of a dancer.
Did I ever tell you about the Pacheco reference in Zoolander? You remember in Zoolander? I'm going to look at you and not you.
Yeah, don't even bother.
Remember in Zoolander when he's back in the coal mines, right? And he goes back into the bar with John Voight, his dad, and then Vince Vaughn is his brother.
Yeah.
They all have the same haircut and everything.
Yes.
He walks up. I got the black lung.
It's the black lung.
So they're watching a Penn State game, and there's Nat Sound audio of the announcer. I don't know if they dubbed it in or it was the actual broadcast. They said, hand off to Pacheco or something like that.
No kidding.
And he's like, who's winning the game? State. Or who's winning the match?
Who's winning the match?
State. And I'm like, wait a second, because he's from New Jersey, which is close to eastern Pennsylvania, which is where Penn State is. I believe in.
But he would have been like 5 years old when.
No. So I thought maybe his dad or something like that. So I looked it up. I could never find a Pacheco playing at Penn State. And
interesting.
Maybe it was a different name that kind of sounded like
Pacheco. That's a random name to make up, though. Like, if you're just going to say, hey, hand off to Johnson.
Yeah.
Hand off to,
because that movie was made, around 2000?
Yeah.
And so
he's not even 5. He was like 5
No, I'm
weeks.
like, it had to be a relative. I couldn't find it. He had any sort of relative that played there because I think that's set in some sort of eastern Pennsylvania or western New Jersey coal mines where they're supposed to be. Yeah. So I did a little bit of a rabbit hole dive, but I thought that was just odd. I rewound it a couple times. You don't rewind anymore. You just kind of hit the button.
It doesn't work any better. No. I yell at my TV like a grandpa the most often when I'm just trying to get it to. I just want to rewind 15 seconds. Suddenly YouTube's playing ads again. YouTube has an ad problem. We can talk about this more. I had that planned for hour 5 today.
We talked some college basketball in the first part of the show and the local schools and everything. We did not play this clip, although this might be somebody's funniest, so I apologize if it is. Might be somebody's best. It might be somebody's learned. I don't know. But Bob Huggins, after the game was over.
God, I have to come up with 3 new ones now.
Did you have the Huggy Bear as your learned funniest and best?
And this is my little my rare ulfab.
Yes. West Virginia bracket matrix is an 11 seed right now. They'll probably need to win a couple more games, whether that be one more of these final two and then one here in Kansas City at the Big 12 tournament. Bob Huggins, West Virginia. So they lose that game, and Huggins was asked about his team and the tournament, and he had some. He laid down a threat for the tournament selection committee. Did Bob Huggins?
I mean, I told our guys I don't think really we have anything to worry about, and I will blast their ass. I mean, as far and as long as I can if they don't let these guys in the tournament.
I have one thing I am rooting for now, and that is West Virginia not making the NCAA tournament.
You don't like Bob?
No, I do. I just want to see Bob Huggins' reaction if they do not make the tournament. I want to see what I'm going to blast their ass as far and as long as I can if they do not let these kids in the tournament. Now I just want to see what Bob Huggins says after the tournament selection is.
I think they're right there on the bubble with like Oklahoma State.
They're an 11 seed bracket matrix, and there's a lot of these brackets that don't have them in the tournament. So
that was tough for both West Virginia and Oklahoma State to have those close games on Saturday, not beat the Kansas teams. Good for the Kansas teams, but both those, they might have to win out. I mean, these next two games.
I think if West Virginia wins a couple, win one of the next two games and win one in Kansas City, that should be enough for
I think they have Oklahoma State, don't they?
I don't know. Then they'll win that one if they play Oklahoma State. That'd be fine.
It's either going to be enough to punch their ticket to the tournament or good enough to punch a ticket to a Bob Huggins ass blasting. It's a win-win.
I've been to a tournament before. I've never been to an ass blasting, as far as you know.
We also don't know how long or how.
I believe you haven't been to a Bob Huggins ass blasting. I don't believe at all that you. What?
How long does it last? How far is it?
As long as he can, as far as he can.
As long as he can and as far as he can. It's going to blast that tournament selection committee. I am now a big whoever's playing West Virginia fan. Sorry, Bob. I like Bob Huggins. I think he's a great interview. I think he's fun. But I want to hear his reaction.
I want them to win a couple more and still
that's a
not.
good point.
Ooh,
so he has an even better case.
That's great. Yep, that's great. Because then it'd be like, well, Bracket Matrix had you as a 9.
Yeah.
And every other tournament bracketologist had you in, and they did not.
KenPom has you the 30th ranked team in the country.
They're 20th, actually.
Tantric at that point.
KenPom's got him at 20.
Oh
They're
my
20.
God.
That's how crazy the Big 12 is. Like, West Virginia's the 20th team in KenPom at 16 and 13. At 5 and 11 in the Big 12.
Wow.
They're number 20.
Used to, in the Big 12, it was like, you better get to 500.
West Virginia
or you're not making it. Then it slipped down to like, okay, you be a game below 500, or 2, I guess you would have to be in an 18-game schedule. And then I think they probably had some 7 and 11 teams, right, that have gone. I don't think they've gone any 6 and 12s.
West Virginia tonight, they have the Saturday, Monday quick turnaround. They are at Iowa State tonight.
I think it's Oklahoma State Baylor too tonight, right?
And then they face off at home against Kansas State. Kansas State wraps up the season in West Virginia. Those are not, I mean, it's the Big 12, right?
That's right.
Not easy games for West Virginia to win a couple or win one of those.
It's crazy, though. I mean, like, as the ESPN, I ran these graphics on last night. The ESPN chances of winning, basically what they call it.
BPI.
BPI.
Right? And that
I think KU, by the way, tomorrow is an 89% chance, or 85, something like that, of winning at home against Texas Tech. What do you think their chances are at Texas? The team kind of floundering a little bit. Lost last game on Saturday.
29. Really?
Yeah. And then KU's is in the 20s, or sorry, K-State's in the 20s at West Virginia.
ESPN does use
12 road.
ESPN does use BPI, by the way. What you might not know is that actually stands for Blast Power Index.
Yes.
Mm-hmm. And that goes about 40 minutes.
It's Bob Huggins LLC that he has. It's his company.
KenPom has the KU Texas game as a 77-75 win for Texas and a 42% chance for KU.
Who has that?
KenPom. So a 42% chance. They've got 83% chance for KU tomorrow against Texas Tech. But the Texas game may not matter.
May not matter
on Saturday. If it'll matter for seeding and things like that. But if Texas does not beat TCU on the road on Wednesday, then KU just gets to play Texas as knowing they're going to be the 1 seed, playing at 2:00 on Thursday. Not this Thursday, but next Thursday, which That's a shorter show for us.
That's all you're thinking about.
Let's go. All right, we'll take a timeout. We'll come back. Learn funniest best next.
Mick Shaffer in the Zone is brought to you by Atomic Cowboy Sports Saloon, home of the 2-story biscuit sandwiches from Denver Biscuit Company all morning, New York-style hand-tossed pizza all afternoon and evening from Fat Soli's, and 20 beers on tap all the time. Experience it today at 42nd and Pennsylvania in Westport.
The Zone with Jason Anderson.
Mick, you're a big Diamondbacks fan. It was the Pirates that they were facing off against last night.
I love D-bags, not D-backs.
Weekdays from 10 to 2 on Sports Radio 810 WHB.
All right, let's get into a little learn funniest best from the weekend. What we learned from the weekend, funniest from the weekend, and the best from the weekend, going around the room, and including Beards as well. He's not in this room, but still counts. Still counts in our book. I don't care what anybody says. I wasn't here last Monday, but one of my learns would have been that you guys thought the Make 'Em Say was a Tech Nine song, so that was...
That's definitely not true.
I didn't think that. that's just my running joke.
Okay.
Yeah,
Good.
no,
Every rap
okay,
song
thank God.
is a Tech Nine song.
Thank God, because on Friday, when I wasn't in as well, you guys had said, na and you're like, it was some Tech Nine song.
That was Mick's line that I just let sit there. I did not go for the correction.
Well, I mean, it was after the Super Bowl when Rihanna was doing all those Tech Nine songs at halftime.
Okay.
I'm like, why don't she do some of her own?
I think you set that bit up in the bit, so I think we're
Here's
good.
the thing. I've now done you a favor because all the people that may have thought, like me, that did they really just think that make him say, oh, it was Tech Nine? So now we know it's a bit. I like the bit. Let's keep the bit going.
Yeah. I mean,
when Shane was running the board, everything was a Nirvana song.
That's right. Yeah, that makes sense.
Rolling Stone. I thought that was Nirvana that did that song.
Got a lot of T-Pain, or got a lot of Tech Nine at the halftime show. Got Tech Nine at the parade.
That's
I
right.
feel like there was one more prominent. Tech Nine's, I would say, his national anthem was riveting.
It's really good. Well, last year's Super Bowl when they had all the artists doing all those Tech Nine songs as a tribute was good.
That was a great tribute to Tech
really
Nine.
Cool. They did at the NFL Awards. They did the In Memoriam to a Tech Nine song.
That
too.
seemed a little bit. I mean, it just shows Tech Nine's range, honestly.
Absolutely. Learn funniest best. What I learned over the weekend is.
Have Mick and I been cleared on all accusations of not knowing music? Okay,
for sure.
Absolutely. Okay, I just want to make sure.
Absolutely. I wonder what 3 months ago, Isaiah Pacheco walking through the hallway and the opening area at Crown Center, heading to the Westin. You know, you can walk inside Crown Center and then go up to the second level and then walk over to the Westin. And then the main room where they were having the press conference was right there. And I wonder 3 months ago what that trip would have been like for Isaiah Pacheco compared to what it was like on Saturday when he walks in and people say, that's Isaiah Pacheco. And the fact that they would just walk him through, like, just as like, hey, here's this guy that's getting ready to win. Like, Chris Jones ain't walking. Chris Jones didn't take the same. Jalen Hurts didn't take the same route as Isaiah Pacheco to get to the Liberty Room in the Westin Crown Center.
There?
But Isaiah Pacheco's trip was people around him signing autographs while walking through. And I thought 3 months ago, I wonder what life would have been like for Pacheco if it had been the same thing. That he's no longer anonymous around Kansas
Is that
City.
something you learned or something you wondered?
No, something I learned. I learned that he's definitely not anonymous anymore. I learned that if he was at some point, that he's walking through Crown Center, that he's going to be
I learned
mobbed.
that you work on Saturdays sometimes.
Sometimes, very rarely though, very rarely. The boss asked, and I'm like, I guess. Mahomes is going to be there. All right, I'll go.
No, he wasn't.
Mahomes isn't there. Son of a gun. You tricked me. You knew he was a groomsman in a wedding. You knew that.
Whose wedding was it?
I don't know.
He was in Vegas, though, right?
I think, but the wedding was...
I heard he's in Vegas on Saturday, and he was at the Mavs game on Sunday.
Well, I knew he was at the Mavs game on Sunday.
The most important game of LeBron's career.
It was a big game because Mahomes was there.
That's right.
That's right. What'd you learn, Josh?
Faked an injury. It was
I learned
a perfect LeBron game.
Learned I should have gotten a
I'm gonna keep
tracker
playing.
on Patrick Mahomes. He should have his own Twitter account that is just constantly showing us where exactly he is at all times.
It's like the Santa tracker.
That is a much better evolution of it than like the private plane tracker. A Santa tracker for Mahomes. There's a pun in there somewhere. I'll figure it out. What I learned, we touched on briefly at the beginning of the show. I learned that I have a second career brewing right now as a life hack maker. You see some of those on your Facebooks, on your Instagram reels, on TikTok, and all of that. My most proud one is what I have done. This is going to surprise no one, which is that I have a small record collection because I'm insufferable, and a little tabletop record player.
Josh tries so hard to be different.
Because I know. Some of them are like my dad.
It takes him an hour to get ready to make it look like it took him a minute to get ready in the morning.
That's true.
You know?
Yeah, I trim my beard one.
You're not insufferable because you have a record player in your record collection. You just are insufferable and also have one.
Totally fair. Totally fair. So with it, not that having a record player in 2023 makes you insufferable, but I know that I am, so this isn't going to help my case. But whenever I have a record on the little turntable, I don't know where to put the album art itself. I can put it back on the shelf, but I usually just leave it out.
Yeah.
I'm not keeping sleeves at this point. These aren't heirlooms. I mean, again, some of them are old, but I'm not trying to hand these down. But then what I've realized, you take those 3M strips that have the little metal hooks on them, you can put two side by side on the bottom and then either one or two at the top, and you can just basically slide your record album art in there. And then so now I can show you the photo. I'm probably going to make a video about this at some point. Just assume it's going to go super viral because I've really changed the world for some people. It ends up being like a little now playing slot for whatever record you have on. And I was really, really tickled with myself. Look at this. You see? Look at that, Mick. You see right there? That's just sitting there. That's just command strips and hooks as like little feet, and then one on top holding it in. You can just slide it in and out. Isn't that nice?
They're all going to be the same size, right?
That beard.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. What's what do you want to mark there, Jason? What did I say that was so funny?
Well, we'll find out Friday at 1:25.
Darn. I was hoping at least you to say it again.
Roughly.
Slide it in and out, and
So-
all the same size.
That's
both.
exactly right.
I learned that my interior decoration / life hack passion, it only needed one football-free weekend to really embrace it. Because last week I watched the XFL. I didn't watch any football this weekend, so I started decorating.
Okay. Well, what did you learn, Mick?
Again, is that a learn, or is that just kind of like a humble brag there?
I learned something about myself.
I think it's more the humble brag.
I learned something about myself.
Mine
And also
was
I saw
towing the
Isaiah
line.
Pacheco out
Mine
in
was
public.
100% a learned.
Yeah, 1 or 100%, either way.
Yeah, that's right. Yes.
Boy, Mick had better learn
what
like
did
the
you
quadratic
absolutely-
formula.
Right.
What did you break out into a textbook?
I learned all 99 numbers after the decimal and pi. No,
Well, they're infinite, actually,
yeah,
Mick.
sure,
It's-
there's more.
So it sounds like there's more for you to learn.
I learned that there's more than 99 numbers in pi.
You know how, like,
infinite.
I don't know, 10 years ago, Tervis cups had their run, right? Those were the big thing that it would hide the little logo of your favorite team in there. After that, Yeti cups were all the rage. The one I have now, the Arctic, had a big run.
Okay.
The Bubba cups, you ever had the big old Bubba cups?
I got a couple Bubba
fat,
cups.
Yeah, fat.
Tall.
Bubba.
I got tall Bubba cups.
I got fat ones.
Okay. Well,
we are
all
now
shapes and sizes.
We are now in the Stanley Cup era, not like the award they give out for winning the NHL
Or the
championship.
Yeah.
All the people I know have big old Stanley Cups. They're big
Huh.
and huge. Oh, they're gigantic.
Handle on them?
Handle on them.
But tall enough you can fit them in your cup holder.
This is their 15 minutes. What's next? I don't know. But when it comes to, like, my wife will carry 3 cups, right, out to probably a Yeti, a Stanley, and a Tervis, out to the car every day, and we only have like 2 cup holders, and it's just great.
Is it like this? Is it close to this? I mean, I don't know.
That's
This
a
is
Contigo. Give
It is
me
a Contigo.
break, Jason.
Not
Oh
every
my
single
God,
Yeti.
Did that just happen?
Not every single Yeti cup is the brand.
That's a knockoff of a knockoff.
Do you
of Yeti,
always
okay?
use a Kleenex?
Oh my!
Or do you have other things?
This is the most
I'm
elitist
talking
Mick has
about
ever
the
sounded.
Specific
Listen, if I
type,
use the
not the
Contigo
specific
version
brand.
of a Kleenex, my nose would be rubbed red and raw. Okay, that
I'm
would
saying
be like
the
sandpaper.
type of cup
Does that
that
make
you're describing.
cold stuff warm, probably, and warm stuff cold?
I'm not sure.
Give me a
Does
break.
a Stanley
Don't
Cup
come in here.
This award
I would
that
even
you're
allow
what is
Ozark
this,
Mountain in here. Okay,
What is this
but not your
award that you're talking?
knockoff Contigo
the
stuff?
Stanley Cup award,
Did you
Mick,
get
that
that
you're
on
giving
the
away.
side of the road?
Is
oh
it a-
yeah. Do you
do they
get some real Oakleys with that too?
Who earns the award in the Stanley Cup? Is it somebody that is it an individual or is it the trophy?
It is a status award, okay?
Okay, I didn't know what the
It's all about
I didn't know what the
status
Stanley
right
Cup
now.
award was.
You don't dare leave the house with your Louis Vuitton bag without your Stanley Cup, gigantic, oversized.
Is that a Stanley Cup in your hand?
No, this is your basic Arctic. It's gonna be around forever. It's like Aaron Rodgers, always gonna be solid, always gonna be good, right? It's won championship. Sounds good. You can put stickers on it. Keep stuff cold enough.
If you keep it around for too long, it might make you sick.
Yep. You need to put it away for a while to have it go.
It's a cup. What does it matter?
Put it back in the cabinet for at least 4 days. Let it dry.
We're in the Stanley Cup era of cups. Ask your wife. I bet either she has one or wants one.
So are these? I'm seeing like there's like a 40-ounce water one with a straw.
In her conversations to Holta, she's like, "Oh my God, he gets me Contigo cups."
No, that was a gift from her. Thank you.
I haven't heard
To
that.
me.
Well,
It's a gift from her to me. So now you got some
Well,
answering to do to her.
no,
now you're making fun of her.
So you were only worth a Contigo cup.
That's
to her?
what
Now you're
that's
making
what we're
fun of her.
saying is. Well,
Now you're making fun
no,
of her.
she gave Sumley a Stanley Cup.
Mitch is
I
drinking
doubt.
out of a Stanley Cup right now.
I doubt that. Well, yeah, that he probably got from his wife.
So that's what I learned, guys, and I learned it's really loud.
It's a terrible learn.
So what a useless
That's the
learn,
worst
Mick.
learned
What
ever.
Is that a learn or a
Compared
humble
to your
brag,
two
Mick?
crap learns is fine. And
I
it
learned that
also-
there's a cup that people are using now. It's called Stanley.
and it makes a really loud sound and can alert you if your wife falls in the driveway on ice and breaks her finger, which happened on Saturday.
No!
It
Was
was
it the
so
clink,
loud.
clink,
I'm
clink,
like,
Was that your
clink, clink.
funniest?
huh?
Is that your
It's
funniest?
funniest, best. It's everything.
Okay. She broke her finger?
Broke her she is a mess when it comes to, like, I don't know, putting one foot in front of the other. She's the most athletic klutz I've ever been around. And this is her third broken bone in her hands after falling. And she has broken a lot of other stuff. Just falling.
She considered just trying to land on her shoulder and roll?
She parked in the garage, yet still somehow made it outside to the slippery driveway, north-facing driveway. It's a pain in the butt. Consider it if you're buying a house. We've got one. And she just put a foot onto the ice and just bit it. And the Stanley Cup was like an alarm.
Broke her fall and her finger.
It was an elaborate learn.
Stanley Cup made it through. She did not. Stanley Cup did.
It's an elaborate learn.
Learned that Stanley Cups might last. That'd be the new Yetis.
Beards, did you learn specific brands, though?
Yeti is
has to be the actual brand, though.
Mahomes of Cups. Yeti is the Mahomes of Cups. It's been great. It's going to continue to be
Not the Jackson
Mahomes.
I don't like this. I don't like this top style that you got here. I'm going to look at these Stanleys.
Yeah, but that's not a Stanley though.
No, I don't.
This is an Arctic.
No, I'm interested in the Stanley. The Yeti Cup lid does not do it for me.
This holds in the cold.
Oh, so it's one of those cups that holds a.
Well, is there still ice in there?
Hot? Wow,
yeah, unlike yours, it turns
almost,
hot to cold and cold to hot.
Almost every other cup that's out there.
Contigo.
I should definitely pay $99 for a Stanley 40 ounce because it keeps things cold and it can also keep things warm, like almost every other cup that's made these days.
Get that free at a kid's
Beards,
birthday party?
what did you? Actually, I did. Yes, I did. Beards, what did you learn?
I'm just in back here with my little Coleman water bottle. I'm good.
Oh my God, Coleman water bottle!
It's a classic.
It's a classic, and also it's Beards.
This guy's got
Joe Montana.
Nice job, you poor.
Yeah.
No, it's Joe Montana.
Jeez.
Anyway, what I learned.
Coleman water bottle.
Yeah.
What, do you even have a home that you live in?
Coleman's a standard man.
Did you leave a cardboard box to come into work today? Am I doing it right, guys?
You should Contigo leave that one somewhere else and get a Coleman
of cups. Okay, he's at least got Joe Montana, one of the originals.
Anyway, so last night Damian Lillard had 71 points. It's a lot of points.
That's right, yeah.
Earlier this year, Donovan Mitchell also had 71 points. This is the first time since the 1963 season where there have been multiple 70-point games in a season. The only thing is those seasons Wilt had them all.
It was whole Wilt.
Wow.
All Wilt.
Oh, really?
Beards is always good for a Wilt.
And LeBron
learn.
actually predicted those games before they happened. The Wilt games.
The Wilt ones.
He knew going in.
Yeah.
Of course he did. Yes, for sure. It was awesome that Lillard, I saw that last night. He had 6 assists and 2 turnovers that nobody's even talking about. I mean, the guy has.
He turned it over multiple times.
He only turned it over twice with 6 assists, and he played 39 minutes, and nobody's even discussing that.
Also, it's the only time there's ever been a 70-point game under 40 minutes.
That's pretty legit.
Really?
Yep.
That's pretty legit.
And the least amount of free throws for a 70-point game.
That's pretty legit. He hit, 13 threes?
That's pretty good.
That's pretty awesome. Your funniest, Josh.
I mean, this whole segment is blown away most of it.
Is it though?
But I'm gonna give a sort of, I don't know, might be a reach for funniest. It's just good content. The We Rate Dogs Twitter account that you've certainly seen, they started a YouTube series that they're calling We Walk Dogs, where they will just walk along with a celebrity and their dog. And their first episode was with Adam Savage from the Mythbusters. It's a 20-minute watch that flies by. It's a lot of introspection and sort of, I don't know. I hadn't heard from Adam Savage in a little while. He's been making YouTube videos, I guess, since Mythbusters, but I had not followed. And now I am again. It's got good laughs in it, but it's mostly just like the best thing I watched this weekend, but not my best because that's a different category.
Looking forward to the Wednesday when Josh gives us his funniest during a 24-second shot clock.
Yeah,
review.
I just, you can only cram so much content into so many bits, and one of these next two had to be Pokemon, so I had to pick one of them. The other will be
maybe you were
a
giving us a
review.
shot clock review there. And
No,
your funniest.
it was just funny content that I would also recommend.
Okay. Funniest for you, Mick.
So we're driving. It's my wife and
Besides
I.
your wife falling and breaking her finger.
Obvious, hilarious. Well, no, I was going to have 2. The other one is driving with her. She's not falling. She's driving, not wrecking. And then my daughter's in the back, and she was telling me about some couple she knows. I don't know them. They're selling their house. She's like, yeah, they're selling their house, going to D-Town. I'm like, oh, man, really? And my daughter in the back says, yeah, they're moving there because they're getting a divorce. I'm like, to D-Town? She's like, yeah. I'm like, what state is D-Town? And she's like, I don't know, probably Kansas. So they're going to D-Town because they're getting a divorce.
Isn't that what they're going to?
Yes. Okay,
I thought maybe they were moving to Detroit. Nope, they're not. Nope. They just got a little confused on what D-Town is.
Yeah, she was trying to, speak in code in front of my daughter, and my daughter picked it up, yet kind of didn't pick it up at the same time. Right? Yeah, they're They're having to move to D-Town because they're getting a divorce.
Yeah, Dad. Let me explain this to you here. Beards, what was your funniest?
In response to the Damian Lillard game, former NBA player Evan Turner said, "I hoop like Lillard for real." Jason Tatum quote tweeted that and said, "I act like Denzel for real."
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
That makes sense.
That was funny.
Yes. If you're watching the XFL, they have a lot of people mic'd up. And DeAndre Francois is a quarterback that played at Florida State and now plays for Orlando. There's some entertaining factors to it.
Is the XFL like the Contigo of football?
No, it's like the Stanley of football.
Oh.
It's like the Coleman. It's the Coleman of football. No, it's the USFL.
USFL, maybe.
Not,
So San Antonio is beating Orlando 27-6. It's in the fourth quarter, and the quarterbacks are mic'd up when they're giving the plays in the huddle. And DeAndre Francois was trying to give the play, and apparently an offensive lineman decided he wanted to try to change the play. So here is this is beeped out, but went out over the air, was not beeped out. Here's DeAndre Francois in the huddle on second and goal, trailing 27-6 in the fourth quarter.
All right, Tait. Act 2, hot. All right, Tait.
Belly left.
Act 2.
Belly left.
Shut the up, y'all. Listen. Act 2, hot. On one-on-one. Ready?
Nothing worse than when an offense.
Some belly left. Let's do belly left.
Does that happen often?
Shut
where
the
offensive linemen just
I don't
try
know.
to just derail a play?
I don't know, but it's great that all these quarterbacks are mic'd up. We get to hear the play call and stuff, and the offensive coordinators get the play call. There was an OC the other day that got a play in late, and it was like 10 seconds left. And he goes, and then turns his mic off, and they're like, oh, well, they got the play in a little bit late there than what he would have liked to do there. But shut the up, guys. We're trying to play here.
So what's going to have better talent, the XFL or the USFL?
It seems like the XFL
I think it's
right
the
now.
XFL.
I don't know if it's just because what's around or whatnot, but it seems like the XFL is currently establishing their dominance.
Yeah, I think it's the XFL. All right, best for you, Mick, besides your wife breaking her finger.
That was the first. The second one is I had an impulse buy at the golf show. I had a great time at the golf show Friday.
Stanley Cup.
I was there on Saturday. Impulse buy something called a liquor stick. It's called a liquor stick.
Hold on, sorry, Mick. Beards. You Mark? Go ahead.
It is a long tube that goes in every golf bag.
Mm-hmm.
You can fill it up with up to 750 milliliters of liquor, and there's a spout at the end, motorized. You click on it, and out it comes. And I'm like, yeah, no, sign me up.
No, yes, I'll take two.
Sign me up. Yes,
I'll take two.
How much would that have to have been for you not to have bought it?
So he said 70. I'm like, oh man.
Easy.
And he's like, well, it's online for 100. I'm like, yeah. He goes, I'll give it to you for 50. We only have a couple left. I'm like, okay.
All right, that's
great.
good. That's good. Good. Nonverbal haggling.
I can get the Stanley Cup for 60 though. So dang it. What was your best, Beards?
My best was on Saturday. My wife and I decided, we wanted breakfast. We figured we'd go get something. We ended up going to Atomic Cowboy and Denver Biscuit Company.
Nice.
Thank
okay.
you.
Really good.
Sorry, Beards. You went to Atomic Cowboy Sports Saloon with Denver Biscuit Company, home of the 2-story biscuit sandwiches all morning and like midday from Denver Biscuit Company, and then Fat Sully's New York style pizza in the evening.
How many restaurants are in this restaurant?
I had the Lola. It was very good.
The Lola's where I started my first time out there at Atomic Cowboy Sports Saloon, and God, I think about it every single day of my life.
About halfway through, my wife looked up at me and she was like, "Good call on breakfast. We're coming back."
Yeah.
Is Lola now the basis of your comparison for every other breakfast you have from now on?
Yes, absolutely. Okay. There is every day that I don't go to Atomic Cowboy, I come in with a breakfast shaped hole in my heart. Even if I had other breakfasts.
Lola
Biscuit,
was the one that got away.
Fried chicken, bacon, syrup.
Sign me up.
Not bad. And a company man, Beards. Good for you.
It was delicious.
It's so good.
My best is the story that comes out of Texas, Austin, Texas, and Houston. A couple is being sued by the HOA, and they're being sued that they could, it's a $250,000 lawsuit, that they are causing unclean, unhealthy, and untidy conditions for the neighborhood because they are feeding ducks in a pond, and the ducks are then going around and pooping on other people's yards. So this HOA is suing them for $250,000. They are fighting this lawsuit because they said feeding the ducks is a way to help them grieve the loss of their daughter. Their daughter found out she was dead by reading this in that her parents were using her death as a way to fight this lawsuit. She's still alive. she's very much alive, but that's why they were, quote unquote, feeding the ducks.
Yeah, I would
to
choose
grieve.
life over trying to support my parents' story in that.
So she's very much alive.
It's a lot of money.
Found out her parents were using her as a reason to not be sued for $250,000. What was the best for you, Brisco?
Oh, the fact that Beards went to Atomic Cowboy Sports Saloon, where you can go yourself and experience it today at 42nd in Pennsylvania in Westport.
We're going to have to go some other time and get the pizza.
I'm ready. I've had the pizza. Also incredible.
They sponsor me. I haven't been there yet. You haven't taken me.
You know where it is. We have a remote at Atomic Cowboy on a Thursday when Jason's out of town. So we can work on your schedule.
It works out well for him who comes in Monday, Wednesday,
I
and
know.
Friday.
That's what I'm saying. Is we're going to have
Good
to figure
idea.
out. It was
schedule's
scheduled.
fluid, okay?
We're going to make it work. We'll be out there.
It's a good idea to schedule a remote on a day that Mick isn't in.
Mick Shaffer's brought to you by Atomic Cowboy Sports Saloon. As seen on Food Network, Diners, Drive-Ins, and Dives, and Man vs. Food, try it today at 42nd in Pennsylvania in Westport.
The Zone with Jason Anderson.
I have lots of amoebas and bacteria swimming up in me.
Weekdays from 10 to 2 on Sports Radio 810 WHB.
All right, that'll do it, mercifully, on this Monday edition of the show.
A hostile LFB.
I know, right? I know.
I got Thursday off again. I worked yesterday, so this is my Monday.
No, this
Weird.
would be your Wednesday.
maybe.
Yeah, because Wednesday would be your
Is
Friday.
yesterday my Monday or my Tuesday? Did Tuesday
Your
just
Tuesday.
disappear this week for me?
It can. I wish Tuesday would disappear for me, and it'd be Wednesday tomorrow. That'd be great.
I think if I get rid of any one day, it would be Thursdays.
Really?
Oh,
I think so.
I love Thursdays.
Then you
The
get-
anticipation of the weekend.
But then that's Wednesday now.
No, Wednesday.
Then get rid of Tuesday.
Wednesday,
That's
it feels
Tuesday.
like you've been at work for a year and you still have 2 more days to go.
Yeah.
No,
Tuesday,
get
it's
rid
like
of Wednesday.
Tuesday. Monday, it's like you know the battle. Tuesday, like why live at this point? I mean, there's so much weekend.
Wednesday's like
We're
The
here.
light is kind of
It's called
there.
over the hump. It's called hump day or something like that.
No, that's dumb.